to begin. You're in too deep to go back again. Cash is paid to play. You want more hits than lemonade. No, you don't own me. You don't even know me. This vagabond with a two-part path to the great beyond. Say genuine, a ground floor up I can help you find. You're a dreamer, call me when you're Bieber. And when they play it, you can't help but sing along. That's nothing odd, that's nothing wrong. 'Cause a good song never dies. It just reminds you of where you were the first time it made you cry, the first time you felt live. No, a good song never dies. Like a lover who won't back down. They pull you over to the side, look you straight into the eyes. No good song never. No good song never. The first time they made you cry, the first time you felt live. No good song never. 'Cause a good song never dies. It just reminds you of where you were the first time it made you cry, first time you felt alive. No good song never. 'Cause a good song never dies.
Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of awesome and highly entertaining racing action in the AlphaTauri Challenge Season 17 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. That's right folks, we're back for another round of rapid fire racing action and here we are today for round number 2 and we have made our way all the way to the US state of Florida for a brand new venue. Indeed, it is time for us to shake things up on the streets of St. Pete as the circuit opens its doors to our touring car racing drivers. And what a circuit we have in store. We opened up, of course, on the streets of Detroit with none other than the Belle Isle Park circuit. It was a street circuit to open up and one we were highly familiar with. But here we are today for a circuit that many of our drivers will be familiar with. They've probably watched racing plenty of time, where it be the likes of GT World Challenge America or TC America race around this circuit, or indeed IndyCar. The streets of St. Pete are no stranger to motorsport, having hosted racing for the best part of 30 years. But at its core, a 1.89 mile length, and on top of that as well, a wonderful mixture of corners, 14 in total, with some long straights and tight corner sequences. This is exactly what you're looking for in a street circuit. Around here, you've got to be brave, you've got to be bold, but you also got to actually be brilliant when it comes to overtakes and also being able to settle that from the outset and get it absolutely right and you'll be coming out on top come the very end of the checkered flag. But get it wrong, however, you may be muscled down the field or find your way to a barrier. But hopefully not the barriers, but hopefully we'll get to see plenty of brilliant battling action as we bring you up to speed with all the racing action for round number 2. Indeed, you're tuning today to a post-round broadcast catching all the racing from Monday the 27th of April 2026. We'll bring it to you as if it were live this Tuesday the 28th of April. That of course means we do not know in the content booth who's going to be the quickest in practice, or perhaps more importantly the quickest in qualifying, and most importantly of course the winners of our races, of which with this being a sprint race round, we've got 2 races today. But just before we come into our schedule, we should introduce this broadcast formally and welcome you to this broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in today on the one and only place you can catch all the racing action for Season 17 of the Alpha Touring Challenge, and of course at youtube.com and search for Paul Walsh Productions or PWP. In the content booth you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh and I'll be your commentator throughout the entirety of the season. And in terms of our schedule for today, times in Eastern Daylight Time, that's EDT, alternative Universal Coordinate Time -4, UTC -4, as we can see in approximately what will be about 12 minutes time, we're making our way into our qualifying session. 10 minutes in duration, due to get underway at 9:15, after which we'll head straight to the grid afterwards for what will be the first of our 2 races. 2 25-minute races on the calendar for today, and well, the first one due to get underway at 9:25. After which we'll take a brief breather before heading to the grid for our second of our sprint races. Another 25 minutes of racing action, due to get underway at 5:10. It's going to be fast, it's going to be thick, it's going to be furious, but who exactly is going to be king on the streets of St. Pete? We're about to find out as we make our way into this round, and indeed to bring you up to speed with the story, let's take a look back at what exactly happened in round number 1 and of course our all-important calendar. Because as we can see, last time out on the 20th of April, we open up proceedings at the Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle. A circuit relegated to the annals of history, no longer in existence, of course, being replaced by the downtown Detroit circuit once again in 2023, but it did not stop our drives from bringing it back to life on iRacing. And then in our opening endurance race round, well, we got to see 3 very unique stories when it came to our winners. The overall and alpha winner, well, that went to none other than Matthew Meilleur, not on the grid today, interesting enough. So therefore, he's taken a win and he's decided to take a bit of a breather, and I get the feeling he may not be able to make this round, but we hope to see him back in round number 3 at Miami. But he was the one who took his 6th career win, and he did it all from starting 3rd on the grid after missing out on pole position by 1.2 tenths versus Wojciech Swirydowicz. But in the race, he had a lightning fast start, jumping ahead at Michael Polasek into turn number 4 in the open lap, and then he chased after Swirydowicz. He took the lead on lap number 15 from Swirydowicz, who after it was a pit stop early on for Swirydowicz for an undercut, and after that, when we did see Meilleur go 2 laps longer, he was able to take the lead after the first pit stops and never look back until he had to look forward to chase down Logan McKinzie. Because of course, the racing at Detroit was all about the strategy just as much as the overtakes, and there was a mixture of 2-stop strategies. Some went long in the opening stint, some went short, some went in between, and they rinsed and repeated or alternated for the second pit stop. And what we got to see was Logan McKinzie, who a huge amount of fuel saving, was able to jump ahead for the lead after the second pit stop, but he wasn't able to keep Meilleur at bay. And in the end, it would be Matthew Meilleur taking the victory over Logan McKinzie, and in the end, Wojciech Swirydowicz and Michael Polasek rounding off that top 4. But what a brilliant run it was between all 4 drives, but Meilleur was the one who came out on top. But meanwhile, if that was the story over in an Alpha, what about in the Gamma class? Well, there it was Cooper Akers, but you wouldn't believe it. Whilst he did take pole position by a 10th ahead of Mike D'Almeida, in the race, his steady start where he prioritised leading the Gamma class over leading the Alphas saw him in the end gradually lose some places, but he did also find out he was losing time to Fleet Smith, who chased after him furiously, and in the end, with a rather short to long strategy from Fleet Smith, it did see Smith jump ahead after the second pit stops, but coming into the final couple of corners on the final lap, Fleet Smith went for a move on Francois Schenk, and it all went very wrong. And in the end, Cooper Akers was able to sneak past by only 12 hundredths of a second at the finish line. So it was very close between them, and expect even more of that today. But in the Delta class, it was Zach Hudarko who took victory, and what a way to do it. He took pole position by almost a quarter of a second ahead of debutant Jonathan Lantin. Now, Lantin, to be fair, was absolutely lightning quick when we did go racing, in the end jumping into lead on lap number 1, but an instant for him on lap number 5, so him relegated from the race into the pit lane and retire from it, and he gave the lead back to Zach Hudarko. So afterwards, Hudarko was able to control the race and he converted pole to victory, although Tyler Long was very impressive coming through the field, and in the end taking the second place spot 6.6 seconds behind right at the finish. So that brings us into today. It is time for the St. Petersburg Grand Prix circuit, time for our first 2 25-minute sprint races, and who exactly is going to be sweeping their way to victory here on the streets of St. Pete, that's what we're about to see. But we do make away, of course, staying in Florida next week. And to the Miami International Autodrome, the circuit only open for the purposes of Formula 1, but it's seen its use case expanded, and more on that next time out on May the 4th. But ladies and gentlemen, let's talk a little bit more about a host circuit then, shall we? Here is our wonderful cheat sheet put together by the AlphaTauri Challenge administration team. And then what we can tell you is straight away in terms of our ratings, well, we don't have too much data when it comes to this circuit as a whole, but we've gathered this data from the practice sessions in the build-up to this round. And what we can see firstly, tyre stress-wise, this is a very high tyre wear circuit. You've got a lot of very aggressive corners around here. You've got a mixture of sweepers, hairpins, and also some rapid-fire direction changes. And we can expect those front tyres on our touring car racing class machines to be absolutely bruised and battered by the end of each of our 25-minute races. Heavy braking-wise, well, we give it a 3 out of 5 because we do have some heavy braking zones, but also we have some rather gentle braking zones as well. There's a good mixture here, so therefore for our drivers, the brakes will be given an opportunity to cool down a little bit. It won't be overly aggressive on the brakes compared to, say, Detroit last time out. Overtake difficulty, that's 5 out of 5 because whilst we do have some long straights around here, the only one where you can really go for an overtake is down towards turn number 1. The run out turn 2 all the way out towards turn number 4. It's a sweeping curve and you've got to be very aggressive on the brakes to make a move there. But remember, if you attack on the inside, you're on the outside to turn number 5 and 6. And therefore, those who are on the outside going into turn number 4, they're normally able to hold the position if they're brave enough to do so. You also got the run coming out to turn number 9 and down towards turn number 10. The sweeping left-hander, it's available for 2 wide, but then again, it's going to be full of commitment coming through that kink before you do get to heavy braking zone at turn number 10, where it'll be only 1 wide at the exit, given how tight the corner is. And of course, the turn 13 hairpin could also offer some overtaking opportunities, but we'll have to wait and see who exactly is going to be able to make them happen. As for off-tracks, we give it 1 out of 5. You've got some run-off areas, particularly going straight on at turn number 4 and also at turn number 1, but otherwise, you'll see some grass towards what will be turns 11, 12, and 13, and that's because our drivers will be making their way onto a runway as part of the city airport, but beyond that, there's very little space to go off track. Normally, you're going to be finding a barrier, and it's not going to compromise for you. But as for the pit entry, it'll be easy. It's parallel to the exit out of the final corner, and the pit exit is quite difficult because you've got to make your way through your own version of the opening chicane at turns 1 and 2, and it'll spit you out on the outside of turn number 2 and means you have to fold right back into the pack. And a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just for their brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track maps contained within it, of which we do see it on screen. And as we can see, this 1.8 mile circuit, well, it definitely looks a bit of a confusing one to the eyes and uninitiated, but it's a very enjoyable one. And the only information we do have is our expectations for early traffic jams in the opening couple of laps of each race. And we're expecting into turn 1, that's a definite, and also the run up towards turn number 4, and also perhaps in the run in towards the turn 13, 14 hairpin. But as always, these cheat sheets very handy, and a big thank you to the ATC team for them. But without further ado then, ladies and gentlemen, let's give you a quick reminder of the rules, because this is our sprint race round, and as we can see, the car setup, it still stays the same. It's an open setup series, with setups being brought by drivers and their teams ahead of each and every race day session. Now, the sprint races, we shall see the races commence via a standing start as an addition of any touring car racing, and particularly seen in the AlphaTauri Challenge. The grid for race number 2, we'll be setting that based on results of race number 1, but we'll be inverting the top 13 finishing positions, although let me just double check that, because I do believe that may not be accurate given the rule changes here, and give me a brief moment to double check, and it's a top 15 inverted there, so indeed, we've caught ourselves out a little bit, but it's always good to double check, and what it does mean a top 15 inverted, a few more places up for grabs when it comes to being able to reverse that grid, and it makes the points even more precious, as you do see that amended there on screen. And well, also there are no mandatory pit stop requirements in the races. That continues over. We're expecting no pit stops at all, although a driver may need to go into the pits for repair work if they have a brush with a barrier or another rival, and if so, they've got 1 fast repair available. A driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 15 or more instant points, and should they get to 30, they will be disqualified. Hopefully we don't see that, and all race journeys shall be conducted post-race. But without further ado, let's make our way back to circuit side. Let's not dwell on the rules and regulations for too long. And as we do, we've only got a couple minutes before we do make our way into qualifying. So let's bring you up to speed with the championship standings after our opening round. And as we can see, starting with the overall Alpha Drivers Championship standings. After 1 round, it's SRG's Matthew Meilleur who leads the way by 10 points over Logan McKinzie, with the Pennzoil Super Touring driver right now definitely threading the needle last time out to finish in second. His strategy outweighing the pace of his rivals, and Michael Polasek in the end was able to take third place for Yellow Flag Motorsport, but it was one of those days where the defending champion just didn't seem to be able to get things to click together on the streets of Detroit. Will he be able to get things to click together today? He is looking to be the fastest currently in the practice session going on in the background. Wojciech Swirydowicz, a very similar story, in the fact that he was very impressive in the early stage of the racing at Detroit, but as time went on, things started to fall away, and it was a bit interesting to see the 2 of our most decorated drivers out there, of course, really losing the pace as time went on, and also strategy being very key, and that's what Meilleur and McKinzie were able to put together. Meanwhile, Micah Hendricks sits in 5th place there for Croc Promotions, ahead of Ray TU, the, of course, driver promoted from Gamma to Alpha after last season, where he became our inaugural Gamma champion, and he was able to stay close to the top 5 all the way through, and remember, he was facing very stiff competition from 5 very highly decorated drivers, and the Beaver and D's driver in the end ahead of Cooper Akers, who is your leading Gamma driver in the overall standings. The Pennzoil Super Touring driver, therefore, now the best part 12 points ahead of B4D's Fleet Smith, with Francois Schink and Mike de Almeida completing your top 10. Behind the Sia and YFM drivers, we do see in 11th place there, Matthew Shepka for Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport. A bit of a challenging day for him. He was looking on course at 1.4, the Gamma podium, but it didn't quite click, and Zachary Leopold completes the Gamma top 5 there in the overall standings. Behind the Pennzoil Super Touring driver, it's then your leading Delta driver, Zach Hudarko, who right now holding that position quite happily at the moment, ahead of Major Monsoi and Tyler Long. Well, Long right now 9 for T0 Racing Ascent. He's got to chase down his teammate as quickly as he possibly can. We then do see, of course, in 16th place, Chris McDonald ahead of John Daniels, with Damon Mitchell, Kurt Smith and John Lauzon completing the top 20. Outside of that top 20, meanwhile, we do see in 21st place, it's a whole run now of Delta drivers, starting with third Hour Ridgely ahead of Jason Lynn, and then we do have Carl Trost, Gareth McAllister, Austin Dunbar, Eli Sasa, Aaron Lahr, Mitchell Richmeyer, Evan Clavio and Lewis Gilbert completing the top 30 in the overall championship. And then we do come down to all the way through Christoph Onderer, ahead of Christian Oss, Benjamin Andrews and Jess Rakowski to complete those who have got points to their name and yet score any points for this season in the overall championship. JB Dejoux ahead of Jonathan Lantin, Jalen Kuo, Jeremy Barber, Michael Bowman, Joshua Bibb, and also, let's not forget, a little bit further down there, Mark Darnell, Angel Minnesota and Nathan Hempley. With Waifu No Life in particular, all three drivers are looking very impressive on their debut, but unfortunately all three drivers coming to woe and misery at what was the Michigan State Circuit, and therefore having to retire from the race and not picking up any points. But meanwhile, we come to the Gamma standings. Coming into this round, and here we can see with the points I've redistributed for our Gamma class drivers, well, Cooper Akers leads the way by 20 points over Fleet Smith, but keep in mind, of course, there was that late drama which really turned the tables around, and when Fleet Smith looked to be guaranteed to take that win, it wasn't to be. So the Pennzoil Super Touring driver right now, well, no, he got a bit of a lucky break, but also he had the pace there to capitalise on the situation at the time, and for Fleet Smith right now, the B4D's driver will be hoping it's not going to be drama once again. Mike de Almeida sits a further 20 points behind there, a bit of symmetry between all these drivers, and really his story last time out was the fact he had brilliant qualifying pace. He was second on the qualifying grid, but he did have the weaker long-term race pace compared to the likes of Smith and Akers, and that meant he got caught up in battles for third place with Damon Mitchell, who, until his retirement, was really looking impressive, and Matt Shefka trying to pick up the pieces there, but finished just behind, and you can see him there in fourth place, 6 points behind. It's further 10 to Zachary Leopold for Pennzoil Super Touring, and then we do have Major Monsoi in 6th place ahead of Chris McDonald, with John Daniels, Damon Mitchell, and John Lauzon completing the Gamma standings. Then we come to the Delta class standings, the third tier of our classes, but by no means to be underestimated, and Zach Hudarko has taken that initial lead, of course, with pole and the victory for T0 Racing Ascent, and it's a 1-2 for the team ahead of his teammate Tyler Long. Tyler Long, of course, having that very difficult qualifying performance, 6th place in qualifying, but he had so much more race pace to demonstrate, and he really brought that to life in the second half of the race. Kurt Smith for B4Ds, well, he really was third best out there. He did gamble on a major undercut right at the start of the race, where he pitted the earliest of everybody around the grid on the first stint, and it brought him clear track, which enabled him to move forward, and it ensured he finished in third, but unfortunately it could not stay with the long-term pace of Tyler Long, and that's why he missed out on second. G's third out Ridgey, he looked good out there as well. Keep your eyes out for him today. He's on 58 points, 4 ahead of Jason Lynn, and then we do have Carl Trost, Gareth McAllister, Austin Dunbar, Eli Sussay, and Aaron Lahr completing that top 10. Now we must give a shout out to Aaron in the fact that he has changed his car coming into this round, and many of you may have noticed he was in the Gen 1 Audi RS3 LMS car at Detroit, but he has now gone to the Hyundai Elantra this round going forward, so he's used up his free car change this season, and I do believe that he gave it a go in the old Audi, which drivers are allowed to use it for this season if they so desire. They don't have to use the Gen 2 car, but of course find a bit of a disadvantage there, and he's decided to go with a new car for today, and we look forward to seeing where we can progress forward in the lime green mean machine. Mitchell Richmeyer, best dressed in 11th place for Umata Motorsport, and the team looking very impressive on their debut. We look forward to seeing what else they can do, because we can see Evan Clavio there, 12th for Sim Racing Grid, had a bit of a frustrating day at Detroit, also picking up a couple of license points, and Lewis Gilbert there in 13th place for Gator Racing ahead of Christoph Onderer, with Christian Oss completing your top 15. The Problem Tribe Motorsport driver in the end didn't quite have the progress he wanted, and neither did Benjamin Andrews, and then the last driver to get points to their name so far, Jess Rakowski there for T0 Racing Summit, who looked quick in qualifying, but in the race was elbowed back down the order, particularly after a big instant in the early laps. JB Dejoux, Jonathan Lantin and Jalen Kuo complete the top 20, yet score any points, and Jalen Kuo comes into this round with a qualifying ban for picking up quite a large haul of license points, what was, for instance, at the Detroit State Circuit, and indeed the Michigan State Circuit, I should say, in Detroit, and outside the top 20, we can see in 21st, Jeremy Barber ahead of Michael Bowman, with Joshua Bibb, Mark Darnell, Angel Minnesota, and Nathan Hempley completing the Delta Championship standings. As for your teams at Championship, well, here we can see, leading the way in the overall overall Teams Championship is Pennzoil Super Touring by the best part of 8 points over Beaver and D's. And then we do have Yellow Flag Motorsport completing that top 3. But already our top 2 trying to break away a little bit. In Yellow Flag Motorsport, well, they'll be very keen to get close to that top 2 immediately and make sure they don't fall into the clutches of the likes of SRG nor Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport. As we can see then, it's very tight between them, plus Crop Promotions, and B4D's a little bit further back in 7th place. The T0 pair of Racing Ascent and Racing Summit complete your top 9, and they do have almost double the points to Gator Racing now complete the top 10, who right now lead the way ahead of Umata Motorsport, Best Dressed in 11th place. There's Problem Child Motorsport, Sim Racing Grid, and Junk in the Trunk Electronicas, who complete your top 14. And indeed, the debutant team, they looked quite impressive, but they did have a bit of a difficult race, and therefore they've got a bit of work to do. And the same can be said for Breakfast for Dinner, Penguin Mafia, and Waifu no Laifu. But as your Delta Teams Championship, and we can see here in the Delta category, T0 Racing Ascent have opened up quite a gargantuan lead already to the tune there of 136 points ahead of Gator Racing, with B4Ds in 3rd place down 72 points, only ahead of Umata Motorsport based on result countback. And it's Problem Child Motorsport in 5th place ahead of SRG, with Sim Racing Grid, Junk in the Trunk Electronicas, and T0 Racing Summit completing those Delta Teams Championship standings. So you brought up to speed now, the picture coming into round number 2, ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, let's head into qualifying, because the circuit falls silent and the streets of St. Pete won't be silent for long, because it's time to see who exactly in the first highest going qualifying here can set the benchmark and set the pace over 2 flying laps. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, our drivers all start to pile the way out of the pit lane as quickly as they possibly can. And how important is qualifying going to be? Well, like any street circuit, is going to be vital. Yes, you can battle at these circuits, but the idea being it's much easier to defend here because there's very little runoff area, and therefore it does mean that you can make your car much wider than you can at most open road circuits. So therefore we look forward to seeing who exactly can get the job done. Remember, they have only 1 out lap plus 2 flying laps. We are down from 3 flying laps in last season, and that does mean that for all these drivers now, they've got to really put on their A game, including Michael Polasek, who hops and skips his way over the curves in his Honda Civic Type R. And we look forward to seeing what the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver can do today, because of course it was not the day he wanted at Detroit, and he was a bit off the pace in the race. Qualifying, he was quite impressive, but it was really the race where the big question marks were, was this the same Michael Polasek that went on to actually dominate proceedings over the course of season 16? Well, the short answer is yes, of course it is, but understandably, definitely one of those rounds whereby things went a bit backwards rather than forwards. As he makes his way onwards towards what will be now the sweeping section of turns 11 and 12. We're still going to be looking a little bit tight as he rolls well through, but that's the wonderful thing about this circuit, and the fact that it's tight, it's open, it's a whole mixture. It depends on which part of the lap you're on. As he gets ready to go onto his first flying lap, we're going to jump on board here for a flying lap of the circuit, brought to you by a defending champion of Michael Polasek. Making his way down towards turn 1 in his Honda Civic Type R FK8, and as he does so, looking to his left-hand side for his brake marker, of course. This is the braking zone off of the edge of a runway, as he comes all the way down into second gear, keep it nice and tight to open up the left-hander at turn number 2. Mounting the curb here, cutting it as much as possible, and now it's flat out all the way for the right-hander at turn number 3, and up towards turn number 4 he goes. Here it's a brief respite before he gets ready to go onto the brakes once again, looking to his left-hand side, and will brake there at the 300-yard board, coming all the way down the gearbox to second gear, bouncing over the curb at turn 4. The car can take it, and now through the long double left-hander at turns 5 and 6, into the right to 7, and immediately here onto the brakes to set up turn number 8. Got to stay nice and tight to that inside wall when you clear the apex, and do the same again at 9, and now it's flat out all the way up towards turn number 10. Smooth lines there from Polasek, but we'd expect no less as he gets ready now to go into the next heavy braking zone. Through the kink, and now in towards turn number 10. Looks to his right-hand side for his brake mark, and it will be there at the 300-yard board. That he'll get ready. 200 yards is where he puts the brakes on, and down to second gear, just missing the exit wall there by a hair's width, and now in towards the chicane at turns 11 and 12. Right into left here, and this is all about your line. You need to cut that curb as best as possible, and onto the brakes here. Puts the car in the middle of the road for turn 13. Does not open up the corner too much, and I think that's because of the weight transfer of the car, and comes out of the double apex hairpin at turn number 14 to complete his first flying lap. But what's it going to be for Polasek? As Cooper Akers sets the initial benchmark, but all these times are going to pile in very quickly, and well, for Polasek crossing line, that is a 16.940, almost 6 tenths quicker than anybody else. As Ray to you goes second there, and well, he'll be happy with that so far, but look at all those laps coming in at the moment. There could be quite a bit of a spread here with only 2 laps available, and remember, our drivers, they've had a whole week to get themselves familiar with the circuit, but even so, learning a street circuit in a week is no easy task. Now, as we do see some drivers going around, we have the slightly easier task of reintroducing some drivers who weren't on the grid for round number 1, but they've been on the Alpha Touring Change grid in the past. They're all veterans, and they've all made their way back onto the grid for today and for this round. And one of those drivers is none other than Dan McFarlane. You see, for for the Sim Racing Grid team. Here he is once again in the Gamma class, and his wonderful at number 23 Hyundai Elantra, and we look forward to seeing how he's going to get on this season. He was quite impressive in season 16, getting right in the thick of the fighting, and we look forward to even more for him. But if we have, what is that, Zachary Hodako in the Delta class, or Zach Hodako I should say, well, we do also have Zachary Bowman here in the 654, and he's racing for Yellow Flag Motorsport for this season rather than Pennzoil Super Touring, so a bit of a change of team there as he makes his way on around. Well, looking good so far as he makes his way onwards, and we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do in his Honda Civic Type R as he's back once again. We also do see the return in Gamma for the Brazilian driver. In fact, not in the Gamma, I should say, as he makes his way down. Yes, in fact, he is in Gamma there, so he's incorrectly listed at the moment as being in Delta, but we're going to briefly fix that in the background, ladies and gentlemen. We do apologise for that. Just a slight technical hitch there, and this is Ian Bertolucci, who makes his way back onto the grid, and we look forward to seeing how he's going to get on as he decides to take to the escape road there, and, well, I believe just simply stepping aside as our overlay does refresh itself for a brief moment, and all these drivers just coming towards the end of their qualifying laps. Damon Mitchell back out there once again. He was on the grid in round 1, of course, but we do have a couple more drivers to introduce, and we've got 2 other Delta drivers we need to say hello to, including none other than Corey Lobner, who's made his way back onto the grid, although you won't be able to see him at the moment, so I do believe he's in the pit lane, unless my eyes do deceive me. And also we do have made his way back onto the grid in the Delta class, another privateer in the form of Spencer Clark. And in fact, here is Spencer Clark at the moment. I do believe there what's happened is Bertolucci and Clark's assignments have been mixed around on our timing tower, and so they are being fixed in the background very shortly. And there we go, he now does get shown as a Delta driver. We do apologise there for the slight confusion, but Clark right now not confused about where he's racing, definitely, and we're not confused about the fact that we're in a B car back once again. Hyundai Elantra this season, and we look forward to seeing how our 919 driver gets on. Good to see him out there roaring his way between the curbs. And, well, Michael Polasek currently the fastest driver out there, no doubt about it. That initial lap time, he set an absolute monster lap time. And, well, as we do see, where's Clark head towards the timeline here? This, I believe, is on a cool-down lap, so he's just getting a bit more practice in whilst he's got the time available in qualifying. So he's decided to do that and makes his way across the line. And in the end, he won't be allowed to improve. He's going to stay 34th at best, and he's going to be at the last of our drivers who have set a lap time thus far. In the fact that we do not have lap times for Evan Clavio, who's on a cool-down lap here, Carl Trost, nor for Jonathan Lantin or Logan McKinzie, although McKinzie is currently coming towards the end of his first flying lap, so therefore he's got a bit of work to do here as he heads down towards the time line. What's it going to be here for McKinzie as he comes on through in the number 4? And the answer is going to be, on that terms of that benchmark, he makes his way all the way out there to 10th place, so 1 minute 17.765. There's going to be a bit more work to do as he makes his way on around, as he does so weaving his way between the apexes right now, and McKinzie looking quick, but still more work to be done. And indeed, he's going to have one more lap to be able to try and improve, so we jump on board with him for the rest of this flying lap as he makes his way down towards turn number 4. Into that braking zone, down towards second gear. Ooh, taking the curve a bit too high then. It actually caught out the rear suspension a little bit. You can see the car actually got pulled round the corner by the curve rather than by the driver and made his way through turns 8 and 9. Well, if he's going to commit to this lap, just see if he can find a bit more time out there. He has had a personal best in the first sector, it should be pointed out. His second sector has been a slight improvement still, but now really come down to the third and fourth sector, how quickly the Pennzoil Super Touring driver can go. And well, onto the brakes here, in towards turn number 10, braking a bit earlier there, perhaps not as confident as others, and to just avoid that exit, well, they get so close on the exit as he now makes his way through turns 11 and 12 here, hopping and skipping his way over that curb again, and we're very tight in towards turn number 13, can't get the car over at all, and I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for our drivers. Those who can get the car slightly over to the left-hand side of the road for turn 13, they're just going to carry a bit more speed as he makes his way down the start-finish straight, and as he does so, what's it going to be for McKinzie this time out? Can he improve? Can he find a bit more time? He does, and he moves up to third. It's a 17.272, a lovely lap there from Logan McKinzie. And as he parks up, well, that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be his qualifying session complete. So he will start on the second row. But meanwhile, look who's going to be starting on the front row alongside Polasek. It will be the man who was denied Gamma victory on the streets of Detroit. It will be Fleet Smith and his Audi RS3 Gen 2 is going to make it up there in number 13. And I don't think anybody else is going to be able to find the time to improve. As we do look to Evan Clavio make his way on around. We are still going to have the 2-minute carryover here in qualifying, I believe. But right now, it definitely seems as though we've had a bit of a shock at the very front of the field, and that is we have a Gamma driver threading the needle right up the front. And when you do consider that Michael Polasek has taken pole position by 3/10 over Smith, you could argue in some respects what this really does mean in reality is Fleet Smith has shown himself to be the best of the rest in qualifying, as we see Spencer Clark make his way down the start finish straight, using all the time to get some practice in. Logan McKinzie and Micah Hendricks will be on that second row together. That's going to be a tasty second row. And Wojciech Swirydowicz just behind, with John Lauzon in an impressive 6th place there, second of your Gammas. Tyler Long, meanwhile, is going to be your Delta pole sitter. He'll be starting 8th today. Well done to him, ahead of championship leader Zach Hudarko, who'll be starting there in 2nd in the class, 13th overall. And Jess Rakowski putting together another stellar qualifying performance. Rakowski starting 3rd at Delta, 14th overall. Can the 999 drive today get it together in the race just as much as qualifying? And I do wonder whether it was the situation in the endurance round where Rakowski had the short-term pace but didn't have the long-term pace that other drivers did do. So the sprint races here today could really be an opportunity for Rakowski to show what they're made of, and we look forward to seeing whether Jess can do so. But also we do have there some surprises, and perhaps one of the biggest surprises, Mike de Almeida down in 18th place. That translates into 9th in the Gammas. He won't be too pleased about that whatsoever, as we do lose Spencer Clark there, but I do believe we might be taking in time to what will be the gridding procedure, ladies and gentlemen, for our second race. No, he does come back, so a bit of a continuity error there, so nothing to worry about. That will be resolved, and as Clark makes his way on around, well, that happens every so often, but hopefully it's a sign not of a technical issue, and indeed Clark makes his way into the pit lane now. I suspect it is just to get the car checked over by the team before we do go racing. But as we do look to the scenic view, and indeed the streets of St. Pete go a little bit quiet for a little time, well, also some other surprises in qualifying. Dan McFarlane all the way down in 33rd place, not happy session for him, and Lantin not getting a qualifying lap together at all after his impressive debut on the streets of Detroit. I wonder if there's an issue with Honda City and the 388 driver's going to have to do it all from the back of the field. He's going to have to start from 36th on the grid. We have had 38 drivers make the journey here to Florida today, which is absolutely brilliant for our first ever round of racing on the streets of St. Pete. But as qualifying is complete, it is Michael Polasek who's taken pole position by 3 tenths. But will that be the margin he runs away with at the start of the race? We're about to find out, ladies and gentlemen, as we make our way to the grid for the first of our 2 sprint races. And as our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for race number 1 in round number 2 of season 17 of the Alpha Touring Challenge, brought to you on iRacing and powered by Syncmesh, and also Glass and Steel Photography and Design. And as we can see on pole position, it is Michael Polasek for Yellow Flag Motorsport. He will be joined on the front row of the grid, the Alpha pole sitter, by your Gamma pole sitter, taking home some very valuable bonus points of Fleet Smith there for P4Ds. Then we have an all-Alpha row number 2, Logan McKinzie for Pennzoil Super Touring in the company of Micah Hendricks of Crop Promotions, and it's going to be Wojciech Swirydowicz in 5th there for Breakfast for Dinner, ahead of John Lauzon for Beaver and D's. The second place Gamma driver we followed up then by what will be an Alpha driver of Ray to You, the Beaver and D's driver, and then we do have your Delta pole sitter of Tyler Long for T0 Racing Ascent starting in 8th. Francois Schenck starts 9th for Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport, ahead of Cooper Akers of Pennzoil Super Touring, and Akers there 3rd in Gamma, but 90 needs to find a bit more pace if he wants to close up to the leaders of class. And Ian Bertolucci on his return to the grid, the Sim Racing grid driver, starts 11th at best the rest. He'll be pleased as punch for that Brazilian driver ahead of Matthew Shepka for Sia. Then we do see Delta there. It's going to be a all Delta for 7th row, in fact, because it'll be 2nd place in Delta for Zach Hudarko, 13th on the grid, and he'll be in the company of Jess Rakowski for T0 Racing Summit. So the sister teams together once again on the grid. And then from 2nd and 3rd in Delta, we do go to 6th and 7th in the Gamma class. It'll be Zachary Bowman for Yellow Flag Motorsport, ahead of Crop Promotions Chris McDonald. Major Monservai starts in 17th place for T0 Racing Summit, ahead of Mike de Almeida, 18th for Yellow Flag Motorsport, and then completing that top 20, it's going to be Jason Lynn for Gator Racing, and none other than Kurt Smith for B4Ds. Outside that top 20, 21st, it's going to be Corey Lobner, the privateer, ahead of 3rd Hour Ridgely for SRG, and then we do have Gareth McAllister for Umata Motorsport, just behind there, ahead of Damon Mitchell. The Crop Promotions drive we followed up by Mitchell Richmond, the Umata Motorsport driver, alongside McAllister, if you will, albeit starting in 25th place, and he'll be in the company of probably Child Motorsports Christian Ost. Then we do have 27th on the grid, Lewis Gilbert for Gator Racing, ahead of John Daniels, who starts there 28th for T0 Racing Summit, knowing he's got some work to do to carve his way through. And then we do have Austin Dunbar starting 29th for Problem Child Motorsports, and round off the top 30, it is going to be none other than Christopher Ondra for Junk in the Truck Electronicas. Outside the top 30, starting 31st, it's going to be Eli Sassat, the privateer, ahead of Angel Bonilla Soto for Penguin Mafia, who'll be looking to get their first points on the board in the team's championship. And then we do have Dan McFarlane for Sim Racing Grid, ahead of Aaron Lahr as he switches to the Elantra. We look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do in the lime green machine. And then we do have Spencer Clark in his return to the grid, the privateer, starting 35th. And then those who did not set a time, Evan Clavier for Sim Racing Grid, head of T0 Racing Sense Carl Trost, and Jonathan Lantin, should he make it to the grid, grid, although I don't think he's going to. I think there's still a technical issue with the 388 Honda, or the junk in the trunk Electronica's drive. We starting from the very back of the field. But ladies and gentlemen, the field is set. We're all set to go. And without further ado, for the first time today, the revs are going on. They're rising high. It's going to be 5 red lights. But who's going to be leading the way down towards turn 1? Well, it's lights out and away we go for the first race of the day here on the streets of St. Pete. And Michael Polasek gets a good start, but as they make the way down, well, right now, can he hold his ground into that opening braking zone? Fleet Smith looking around the outside as they all weave and wind their way through. Takes a lot of curb there into turn 1. I think that's a little bit of pressure on Polasek, but he's able to hold on to lead coming in towards turn number 2. There's plenty of fighting further back. And it looks like all drives safe on through the opening couple of corners. And as soon as I say that, oh, goodness me, it goes into the barrier there for a couple of cars, including Damon Mitchell, who gets pinned to the wall there. But still, we have to leave them behind for now. We're going to replay that when we can as the drivers make the way through turns 4 and 5. And that's going to be John Lauzon, hold off Francois Schink as Tyler Long's jumped up into 6th place already. And Long's breaking away here as meanwhile, Lauzon's been pushed back. Ian Bertolucci has got Cooper Akers on his inside. Akers going for the move there immediately. Number 29 driver going for it, and he's going to get it done nice and smoothly. And right now, that's Akers up into 3rd in the Gamma class. So Bertolucci having a little bit of slow start by comparison. It's not helped him out at all. Zach Hidalgo, meanwhile, has launched his way all the way up the field into 12th place. Meanwhile, by comparison, the driver who joined him on what was the 7th row of the grid, that was Jess Rakowski. She's fallen back here to 4th place in the Delta class, with Kurt Smith right now having inched ahead early on. So Rakowski's had a bit of a slow start. Oh, that's going to be very close here as they go too wide. And will they survive? No, it goes a bit wrong. Who's that going around? With multiple cars there. And I think that's Jason Lynn getting caught up. And, well, definitely... Oh, my goodness. And coming straight into the parked car there. Being sent into the stratosphere. Well, that's a big instant coming toward the end of the lap. And, well, we're going to get a replay of that. And, indeed, well, it's been a nightmare moment. Hopefully, everyone's okay. But, meanwhile, at the front of the field, there'll be no safety car. But there'll be local yellow flags through there until it's cleared the road. Well, Michael Polasek leads right now. And he's holding that lead ahead of Gamma leader Fleet Smith, followed by Logan McKinzie, Wojciech Swirydowicz and Micah Hendricks. That's your top 5. Delta leader in 6th place. That's Tyler Long, followed by John Lauzon, Francois Schink, and then we'd have Ian Bertolucci and Cooper Akers by him. But the fighting right now for the final spot in the Gamma podium, it could not be fiercer. And Zach Hidalgo, he's sitting in the midst of this right now as a wolf in sheep's clothing as the 2nd place Delta driver. Probably thinking to himself, well, I want these overall places because they're going to give me more points in the championship. But at the same time as well, do I really want to be in amongst all this? He'd ideally like to try and jump him if possible. The problem is he's in the thick of such a thick fight that it's going to be very hard to do so. If he goes to make a move, he might be at risk of losing several places. Further back, Austin Dunbar, with all the chaos that played to the final lap of the final couple of corners of the open lap. Well, right now, Austin Dunbar leading the way. I was going to say the final lap for some drivers, so they've had to retire to the pit lane. There's Raymond Tew looks for a potential move here versus Eli Susak. Well, in the end, it's Susak getting ahead, and we're into that braking zone for turn number 10 right now. Further back, Christopher Onva being battled with Aaron Lahr, and Lahr up the inside. They're forcing to move on versus the junk in the trunk Electronica's driver. And oh, there's going to be contact, and that's going to turn Lahr to the barrier. Oh, and they all get caught up again. It's turn 11, 12 all over again, and we're seeing their drivers cannot go too wide through the corner. I don't think it's because of lack of talent. I think it's because just how that apex at turn 11 tapers so tightly, and in the end, they're underestimated just how close they're going to get to each other into the corner. But meanwhile, whilst all that's happened, well, drivers carried on here. And right now, Michael Polasek running away at the front of the field. 3 seconds clear, as I believe, hold up a second, we've had a Gamma leader drop out, and that's Fleet Smith. Now, as Fleet Smith had a moment with the wall somewhere, I suspect he's got to have, or something's gone very wrong, because now John Lauzon has been promoted into the Gamma lead. But meanwhile, look at this. Hendricks battling side by side with Francois Schink. Oh, my goodness. And Hendricks' car, what on earth has happened to it? It must have gone into the barrier there. Coming through turn 6 into 7. I can't think of another reason why it's completely collapsed on the front, and at one moment they're side by side, and the next one it's all in pieces. And well, Hendricks is going to have to tow to the pit lane if he can't get that to crawl safely on down, and he's going to try to do it here, but he's got to be very careful because, of course, the longer he does this, the bigger the risk he has of a driver hitting on the back. And if so, well, I get the feeling the Shivs will take a look at it and think, was he trying to drive as safely as possible, and should he have been driving in the first place with such a damaged car? Well, things are definitely calming down at the moment, for a brief moment, I should say. Although, and then again, to be fair, if things are coming down, I suspect it won't be too long before the drama kicks off once more. But you can always expect that in the AlphaTauri change, no doubt about it. But as we do see Major Bodswai still fighting with Chris McDonald. McDonald behind him, well, that is going to be in the foreground of your camera shot. A car pulling out of what will be the racing line. That's Damon Mitchell to go a lap down, and that's going to enable all the lead lap Gamma drivers to come on through there. Mitchell would love to be part of the fight, but sadly he can't because he has had a difficult start to this race and therefore has fallen backwards. Meanwhile, as we do see all drivers move forwards, well, we are going to move backwards in time for a brief moment to catch up with all what happened right at the start, ladies and gentlemen, because we've had some big drama and we need some answers, starting with what happened to Damon Mitchell. Now this was through the opening couple of corners. It all went wrong for Mitchell before it even got going, really. And through turn number 2, he was, oh, goodness me, was a car into the barrier there. And I think Damon Mitchell, if that's not netcode, I think he's just lost the rear of the car coming through the corner, because that went very sideways for him. And we did see a big biff to the barrier there for another driver as well. Couldn't quite catch who that was. Now this was Lewis Gilbert on the open lap. He was too wide, back side by side through the double right complex turns 8 and 9. And then got into a bit of a touch, and the camera angle doesn't help. But the Gator Racing drivers turns to the wall, and then the number 23 parts up in solidarity. That was Dan McFarlane, who had nowhere to go. This is what it looked like on board from McFarlane's perspective. And this was him making his way through turns 8 and 9, and the incident's about to happen now. You can see it there just off on the right-hand side of your screen, and it gets obscured by the A-pillar of his car, and in the end has to take evasive action. So Lewis Gilbert being turned, and this is what it looked like from another camera angle. So I think we are actually now going to see the incident between Lewis Gilbert, and I believe, I couldn't quite tell you who that was side by side with him, unfortunately. And it just happens there as we switch over the cameras, and a bit of contact with an Elantra, and it sends him sideways, and McFarlane has to do his best there to park the car up. But this was the big drama at the end of lap number 1. This was Jess Rakowski, Corey Lovner, and Jason Lynn all involved together. So there was an initial bit of contact there, which did trigger it off. And then, well, Rakowski and Lynn coming together. Lynn parts in the middle of the road, and wait for it. And there we go. And Elantra comes charging into the scene of the incident, sends Lynn into the stratosphere, and it all ends up in pieces for all the drivers. Angel Bonilla Soto being caught up in that, and I think he might have been the driver in the Elantra who charged into the scene of the madness. But meanwhile, we had Aaron Lahr. This is on lap number 2. So, turn 11 and 12 caused a lot of drama in the open lap, and it caused even more on the second lap. And Lahr being turned there across the front of, I believe, the Audi. And I think that's Duncan, the Electronica car. The 312 is in contact with Christopher Ondra, and it all went very wrong. This is what it looked like on board from Ondra's perspective. He looked up the inside into 11 here. The 157 from Problem Child Motorsports just avoiding getting caught in this. And in the end, Ondra had nowhere to go after that initial contact. And Spencer Clark did very well to evade being caught up in it, but it was definitely big drama. But here was the biggest drama in them all. Fleet Smith, right at what was the front of the field, chasing after the lead. Gamma leader came through turn number 2. Oh my goodness, and car coming out the pit lane there. Was that Rakowski? It was, and Smith got caught up, and that's what led to secondary contacts there. Now, who was that who got caught with him? I don't know, but I can tell you one thing, several drivers getting caught up there. Was that what happened to Micah Hendricks? Well, we're going to have to find out. We take a quick look back, and this was, I believe at the time, the look from Hendricks' car. Can we get a bit of a look? We can. This was Hendricks going through for crop promotions, and in the end, there was Smith repelling off the wall, and oh my goodness, and I think that was Jason Lynn who just come out the pit lane to go a lap down, and Hendricks in the end, into the back of Lynn, had nowhere to go at that point, and it was a triple whammy with regards to the contact, and that explains why Hendricks in the end was falling down the order like a stone, trying to defend every position, but as he hit the curbs there, we're definitely shaking apart a few more screws in the car, and at that point, well, there's more than a screw loose in that car, I can tell you that. But back to your live racing we go, ladies and gentlemen. So we do come back, and we've still got plenty of time left in this race, no doubt about it. But have we still got plenty of drivers left in this race? Well, of course we have. We're not going to run out of drivers anytime soon, as Michael Polasek right now is trying to run away from all the other drivers. And we've got a battle for second grind between Logan McKinzie and Wojciech Swirydowicz. The breakfast for dinner trying to put some pressure on here in the battle of the Hondas. And it does seem as though the Honda Civic Type R, at least for these street circuits, is a little bit king when it comes to our fastest drivers out there. And we've all gone with the Honda. Remember, we have had a balance of performance update coming into this season because of the fact we had a whole refresh of the physics and tyre models with the TCR cars on iRacing. Indeed, now these cars do the infamous tripoding at high speed, but also these cars now really are driven over their front axle. They're a lot looser over the rear end. They are no longer the proverbial racing boat that people used to compare them to, and therefore they're much more lively cars, which a TCR should be. But as we do see these drivers making their way around right now, well, that battle for second place, definitely one of our big battles out there. The field has spread a bit with all the drama that has played out, albeit, I say that, it's more of a spread in classes rather than a spread overall, because here we can see that right now, the car at the head of this group is missing its front bumper. That is Tyler Long trying to keep it alive in the 767, and right now Cooper Akers trying to look for a move there. And well, as they roll the way out to the corner, grazing the wall there, and Long trying to hold on for 7th place overall. Cooper Akers right behind, and Zach Hidalgo there, and Matthew Shetka coming up behind. But all these drivers in a long line together. As they come into the brain zone of turns 13 and 14, we do see Chris McDonald at the back of the group here fighting for an opportunity to be on that Gamma podium. But it's not going to be easy, I can tell you that, as they make their way down towards turn 1. And as they do so, we've still got plenty of time in this one. We've only just cleared the best part of what will be 10 minutes of racing by the end of this lap. And if we've still got another 15 minutes plus a final lap to go. And all these drivers right now, definitely poking and prodding and looking for more opportunities. But such is nature as they roar the way around. right now it's going to come down to a bit of patience. But will the patience last here for Austin Dunbar, who we jump on board with for Problem Child Motorsports? He's definitely survived a bit of the madness, starting 29th, moving up to 19th, and along the way picking up a couple of Delta places. So he's definitely looking a bit happier compared to how it all started. But right now, can the triple free driver find a way to move into the top 5 of Delta? It won't be easy, given the fact that as he sits behind Susak, well, Eli Susak's also had a lot of progress made. He started 31st up into 18th place. So both these drivers have had respective journeys, which he'll be very happy with. But I suspect now it's going to be about who's going to be the most consistent, who can put the pressure on the other. And being the hunter in this situation is by no means as easy as being the hunted. They're both very difficult propositions. The thought process here, of course, is the fact you are the lead car. The nice thing is you don't have to worry about your visibility, particularly when you've got nobody in front of you to the tune of 2.5 seconds. In the case of Susak, you don't have to worry about your visibility ahead of you being obscured by another car. Dunbar, meanwhile, of course, the closer he gets that velocity in front of him, the less forward visibility he will have, and the bigger challenge he will have in nailing his corners. Then he's got to really do it on muscle memory and looking to side markers, i.e. looking to his left and right rather than in front or just adjacent or front of him as he comes out of hairpin. A really good run there for turns 13 and 14. On to the runway he goes, and can he take flight into turn 1? Well, he's thinking about it, looking to the inside, then peels back in. Will he look a second time? And the answer is going to be no, he does not, and just stays behind right now as we do leave them be. But meanwhile, Tyler Long, well, he's not going to have that luxury here as he's going to be made to go a bit deep into turn 4, but he'll defend hard into 5. But around the outside, that's going to be 2 drivers, and Zach Hidako goes to the double. And to be fair, it's the change of 2 teammates there for T0 Racing, so it does mean that right now Zach Hidako taking over from his teammate of Long, and well, they'll still be going for 1-2 in the Delta class, but I think Hidako at this point wants to make the breakaway. And I think they've been on the radio, and I wouldn't be surprised if the team management have said to Tyler, as much as you want to try and hold on, you're doing a brilliant job, let Zach go. He's got a clean car, or at least a bit of a cleaner car than yourself, and therefore he can break away and go chasing after more points, whereas meanwhile, you're going to need to be rear guard to this race. Of course, they do have Gareth McAllister a bit further back. McAllister there down in 15th place, who does have Ray Tiu chasing after him, and you've got Mitchell Richmite and Eli Susak around off that top 5, and therefore, there's that spread in the Delta class at the moment. I think T0 Racing Ascent want to play their cards right and play them safe, which is sacrifice Long's overall position for the betterment of that 1-2 opportunity. But meanwhile, it does mean that Shepka, as he makes his way down towards turn 1, he's now got to try and make a move on Long. He's going to go up the inside here, and remember the fact it's a long braking zone into turn 1. It's a very bumpy braking zone as well, and you normally do see cars go very deep there, but nobody goes deep this time. But it's also one of the main overtaking opportunities for the way around. We're coming up towards turn number 4. Well, Shepka getting closer and closer, peels the inside, and I think he might try to do what happened on the previous lap. Inside he goes, but there's been contact between the two of them, and in the end, Long did not want to compromise on that one, and well, I think both drivers here are going to argue that the other was at fault. I think that's going to be half a dozen of one and what is it, 12 of another, and through the right-hander, well, that is going to be up the inside for Shepka. Major Bodswine jumps up the inside as well. Chris McDonald tries to go for it, and as they come back into our camera view, has McDonald got through? Yes, he has, and Tyler Long in the end, once the doorway opened up, really been elbowed around, and well, in the end, all the Gamma drivers here haven't got the patience for Long, and it's not because they don't respect him, it's the fact they all want to battle each other and want to gain more points than each other, and I think they see Tyler Long as a little bit of a speed bump at the moment in that progress, and that puts now Long with what we Daniels behind him and almost into the hands of Gareth McAllister, the third place Delta driver you can see in the rear of the picture, and he's bringing it to you with him, so there could be some more change of foot between them soon. Well, as they make their way onto that runway, further back, Zach Bowman being chased after by Austin Dunbar, but chasing Eli Susak himself, and in fact, he found his way in between these two drivers. We didn't expect that to happen so soon, but there has been a bit of a change, as Carl Trost, meanwhile, as that's unfortunately towed to the pit lane. Meanwhile, change there. That's Christian Ost up the inside of Aaron Lahr coming round to turn number 9. So a bit of a change of foot there. We're going to take a look back to that very shortly in terms of how they swap things around. As I'm hearing in my ear that John Daniels has moved ahead of Tyler Long as well. So Long's relegation down the field continues. And, well, it's a long way down at this point. No pun intended there, as Ray Tu's going to bring him a little bit of a breather, diving up the inside there of McAllister, who sees it coming. And when McAllister says in the end, Ray, that's absolutely fine. I'm not interested in you. I'm interested in the guy in front of you. Can you be a bit of a nuisance to him? Meanwhile, too wide here, that is going to be Bowman up the inside to the outside of Susak. Will get that place, and Eli Susak now does have right behind him. There is Austin Dunbar, and, well, they've got no worries from the car immediately behind them, because that is the car of, I believe, Fleet Smith that's a lap down. It's going to try and unlap itself, but at the same time as well, to do so, you need to do it very quickly, and you need to break away. If you don't, then you are going to be subject to the stewards potentially having a bit of a word with regards to the fact you're not obeying those blue flags, and being a bit of an inconvenience. As I'm hearing in my ear as well, more drama. Tyler Long has had to be towed to the pit lane. There's been a bit of an instant for him, but we are a better run there, and this is going to be Dunbar looking for the move in towards turn 11. They're going to go too wide as they come onto the camera, and in the end, it's going to force Sarsak to go straight over the curb there. Does he pick up a slowdown for it? I'm not sure, but the T0 Racer Ascent Trier definitely not making as high an ascent as we saw for Jason Lynn on the open lap. We're coming out to the quarter right now. Dunbar close there and looking to try and make some progress in the triple three. And I think right now Austin Dunbar's got the pace, he's got the confidence, but he's got to find the right overtaking spot. That's the only problem as they come down, and 10 minutes still left to go for these drivers, and still more fighting afoot as we ride on board. Looking down over the front of the Promtron Motorsport car that had its wipers on for a brief moment. And I get the feeling there, the triple free drive trying to get some debris off of the windscreen just to give himself a bit more forward visibility. And remember the fact this circuit will have been swept in the build-up to today. They would have had the marshals out there cleaning away the debris. But at the same time as well, small bits of rubber do get laid down and ping off of these cars. And they do very quickly get etched onto your windscreen. And on top of that as well, any stone chips that come up can also be a bit of a nuisance. They can really put a mark in the windscreen as well. And that's what the wipers do go on for there, to try and clear any of the rubbish off of the windscreen so they give you the best possible forward visibility. And you need it at these circuits. You need it at any course, but particularly such a tight street circuit. But we can see here Dunbar right now keeping it nice and tight as he chases after Sasa. And this is the thrill of St. Petersburg, of course, in the fact that at any moment, one tiny mistake or one brave move could be the difference between victory or failure. And as they roar the van out right now, with Dunbar definitely trying not to fail at this test to find his way into the top 5 and further in the Delta class. Because, of course, with Long having it go wrong, they've all been moved into the top 5 now in Delta. But still understandably, there's that fight for the first place off of the podium up for grabs. But meanwhile, Major Monsavai, he's got a long queue of cars. Matthew Shepko's run away. You can see him running in the distance. And meanwhile, Monsavai right now 5th of your Gamma drives. He's got McDonald, Almeida, and then Daniels behind. And then you've only got, well, he's a second to TU, who wants a Gamma, now an Alpha as they head down the stretch up towards turn number 4. Will we see a move this time? No is the answer. We do see a bit further behind a potential change in terms of drivers unlapping themselves. And I do believe that is none other than what is Evan Clavier trying to move forward. In fact, I think Dan McFarlane being put a lap down there in the rear of the picture, so I do apologise for the confusion there. But meanwhile, we do see Chris McDowell looking up the inside. He's going to go for it here as they come through turn number 9. And the Audi driver, in the end, it's going to be a move there, and that's going to bring Mighty Almeida through as well. And Major Monsavai is going to be elbowed down the order here very quickly. And, well, now Monsavai loses 2 places, but in the end, McDonald had to go for it. But 2 wide behind, John Daniels up the inside as well. And, oh, he goes deep. I think there was contact to the rear there, Monsavai's car. Was that you tapping on the rear? I think it was. He's towed. As a result, he's gone straight on. I think that damage in the end's actually broken something at the rear of the car. So TU carries on here. We'll have to try and get a replay of that when we can. And remember, we've still got a fight for second place going on. It's still Logan McKinzie ahead of Wojciech Swirydowicz. They've been like this since the start of the race. And Michael Polasek's checked out. We're right now trying to show that Detroit was just a blip. And Logan McKinzie right now trying to show that second place last time out was not a blip. It was a sign of things to come. But Swirydowicz still looking for that move. And as he does so, Austin Dunbar has found his way out of the final quarter ahead of Eli Sasak. So he's taken that full place in Delta right now, and just in time as they head down towards turn number 1. And Fleet Smith just sitting on the back of the pair right now and not able to get involved, given he's a lap down, but definitely being a bit of a spectator to that battle. He's got the popcorn seat view, as we like to call it, the best view in the house. But in terms of some big moments that did happen, well, we need to take a look back very quickly at what happened to Tyler Long, ladies and gentlemen. Not before we do see Eli Sasak here potentially look for the counter-attack up to turn 4. He's going to go for it, Sasak, so he's coming back here. Dunbar's not had a good run through the opening 3 quarters. He's going all in. His contact between the 2, and immediately Sasak backs off there. He wanted to get his nose in. Austin Dunbar thought there was not enough overlap. And well, in the end, I think Sasak backed it off there to make sure he did not gain the space unfairly. I think he reflected afterwards and immediately thought to himself, you know what, as much as I could argue perhaps I had the right, actually I probably didn't have the right, and therefore the stewards were probably looking at me with a raised eyebrow unless I tried to slip them a $5 note. But even so, that wasn't going to work out there, and of course our stewards not open to bribery. But that's one of those situations there where definitely you are looking at yourself afterwards and thinking, did I really need to do that? And I think Sasak having that moment of reflection. But as he made his way out to turn number 10 and onwards, well, meanwhile we do take a look back to everything that happened to Tyler Long in particular, where it's all gone so very wrong. So this was Long at the time, of course, holding on to second place in the Delta class, but coming down towards turn number 10, went onto the brakes, and as he did so, he went straight on there, and I think the car just giving up in the end, and sadly for the driver, that was it. He couldn't go any further. We had this for Major Monsavai on lap 13. Now this was the battle, of course, as he came on down. He'd already been elbowed out at turn number 9, and in the end, what went wrong? And the answer is that was Tew missed his brake marker and went onto the back of Monserrat and sent him straight on. And well, sadly, it was a toe to the pit lane for Monserrat. That damage sent him off into the distance, and well, it all went very backwards. But of course, we also had Austin Dunbar make this brilliant move for what was fourth place in the Delta class. This was the end of lap number 13, and it was Sussex going a bit deep, and then they're trying to close the door, but saw that Dunbar was coming to the inside, and if he tried to close it, there would have been contact, and it would have been tears for both of the drivers. So brilliant battling, and we come back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen. As we do come on back, a huge thank you, of course, to Arturo Meilleur, as always, the brilliant software that we do have that enables us to bring you replays of the racing action from an iRacing replay file. Because, of course, all these post-round broadcasts brought to you for the fact that we do have our administration saving these replay files from the races, and therefore we can come back and take a look at all the action. It's as close as possible as we can truly get to live racing. But as Logan McKinzie makes round around, still under pressure from Wojciech Swirydowicz. No change with 5 minutes to go. And we look back from the rear of your number 2 driver in terms of position, but the number 4 in terms of the car, and right now it is the battle of the 2 Hondas. But you can see Swirydowicz so close at the moment and itching for a potential move. But the thing is, these two know each other so well, both multi-time champions of Touring Car Series. In this series specifically, Logan McKinzie, your most decorated driver, of course, 6-time champion, and Michael Polasek, a 5-time champion, trying to equal McKinzie at the end of the season. Wojciech Swirydowicz, he only has 1 title, but up until last season he was the record holder for the most wins. That has since been taken over by Michael Polasek, but goes to show you that Swirydowicz, whilst he may not have as many crowns to his name, he definitely is a driver never to be underestimated, and also, of course, a 2-time champion in the NXTCC, the European counterpart to the AlphaTauri Challenge, if you will. And whilst the drivers make the way on through, you'll see many of these drivers on multiple TCR grids, but here really the best of the best going racing, as always, on the North American continent, for this series, an international series like many others. As he heads on around. Right now, Logan McKinzie still holding on. New fastest lap of the race that last time out for Michael Polasek, a 17.93. He's going for it all today in terms of trying to lead every lap, plus also take those fastest laps. Remember, we've got another race after this one. We've not just got the one race, as well, Swirydowicz there making a complete ham sandwich of the apex curve at turn number 5. That was cutting the corner and then cutting it even more. So I don't think he's picked up a slowdown, but definitely the front suspension of that Honda's probably going to be saying to its driver right now that you've just stressed me out very much so, because that car looked like it clattered off the curve very aggressively. It drops onto the front left tyre, but as they make their way up toward the braking zone, no slowdown at all. Otherwise, you would have seen him fall back by now, because those slowdowns must be served typically within 25 to 30 seconds. Otherwise, it gets upgraded to be a stop and hold penalty in the pit lane. As we do see Swirydowicz getting close here, right on board. And a very smooth transition there from the outside of turn 12 to the outside of 13, went from right to left on the circuit. And, well, that's what's enabling Swirydowicz to get closer. You can see he really gets the body language of the car, and he's getting it under control very quickly. McKinzie is doing very well, but I think McKinzie's really being forced now to go more and more defensive through each and every corner, and that is proving to be the difference here. Swirydowicz dives up the inside, goes in at the last moment, and, well, in the end, that was a very late call there. I wouldn't be surprised if Swirydowicz perhaps at the last minute missed his braking zone by about 5 meters and said, right, I've missed it. I've got to go for it now because I can't swing the car to the outside. Otherwise, I'm going to hit the back of McKinzie. And McKinzie, I think, had to open up the steering there. That was a brilliant move, but I think it really required compliance from both drivers. And I wouldn't be surprised there if now we're potentially going to see McKinzie try and do something similar towards the end of this lap. With only this lap plus one, most likely one more or two more to go, given the time we've got. But as they do come up to the car there, the Ponchard Motorsports car of Christian Ost, the Audi driver who will be going a lap down at this point as he tries to chase after Spencer Clark for 7th in the Delta class. Well, that chase may put on pause for a little bit, as we have had a bit of an incident as well for Major Monserrat, a further incident that's demoted him back down the order to 31st place, although we're not going to be able to bring you a replay of that, given we are towards the end of the race now, and therefore we're going to focus on the battle in action. Speaking of which, Cooper Akers right now, third of your Gamma drivers, and he's all over the back of Ian Bertolucci, and great to see Bertolucci back on the grid once again. And well, right now, your Audi driver in the foreground of the camera shot, still holding on, and then they do have, behind the pair of them, none other than what will be the lap down car of, I believe, Evan Clavio trying to roll with them, and then it's a further 5 seconds back to Matt Shepka, who currently is your fourth place Gamma driver, but he's bringing the Delta leader Hidako, and also Chris McDonald and Mike Almeida along for the ride. But as we do see our our race leader overall. Michael Polasek still leading at the moment, and right now by 1 minute 30 on the clock, he's gone onto this lap. He will get 2 more laps in. He's got time. Meanwhile, Wojciech Swirydowicz, does he have the time to hold on for another 2 laps versus Logan McKinzie? Well, after what was an absolutely defiant move, it was a big look up the inside, and in fact, we are going to get you a quick replay of that move, ladies and gents. It was an absolute epic, no doubt about it. Here we go quickly, and this is, you'll see just how much of a dive he went for. And this was heading down the start for the straight. And as they head into that braking zone, you're going to see in the end, dived up the inside of the last possible bone, and McKinzie saw it coming and had to open the steering wheel up there. As I think the two would have had major contact, and McKinzie went all the way around the outside to get that done. A brilliant move, but there's surely going to be more to come as we head back to your racing. And as we do come on back, well, we've got 30 seconds left on the clock, and that means we've got 1 more lap, we do believe. As right now, McKinsie's just a bit further back this time. Meanwhile, further back, we do see Ian Bertolucci still being pressured by Cooper Akers. Akers itching for that move if he can make it happen, but right now it doesn't seem to be forthcoming. We do see a driver stepping aside there, and that is going to be Lewis Gilbert being passed as a result by Evan Clavio, who's on the back of this group. So in the end, I think Gilbert not realising the fact that there is one driver in this trio who doesn't quite fit into the pictures on the same lap as him, but that's what you can sometimes do. You can be a little bit cheeky and just ride with the lead lap runners, and in the end you might be able to gain some places where cars that are on the same lap as you but a lap down in the end do give up positions. But meanwhile, Ian Bertolucci has to go defensive. He's not going to give up this second place in the Gamma class. He'll say it'll be all the way to the end. He wants to hold on to it, and Cooper Akers right now tapping on the rear a little bit, but still trying to poke and probe. And as they power their way down towards the next corner sequence, turns 4 through to 9, Akers a bit too far back here, but comes across, and well, that's a bit too far back there. I think that's to try and send a message to the driver behind, which is you're not getting through, and that's to try and send that message to Evan Clavio, no doubt about it. Clavio, I think, would like to unlap himself at this point and be a little bit of an annoyance there to Akers to prevent them from battling, but I suspect there'll be a word to the steward's room afterwards about that. But meanwhile, there'll be no words to the steward's room about this, because as Michael Polasek comes out of the final corner, well, for him, it was the start of the very front of the field on pole by 3 tenths, and in the end, he's led every lap of this one. And for Michael Polasek, he'll become our inaugural winner on the streets of St. Pete. He takes the win by 7.2 seconds, but who will finish second? It'll be Wojciech Swirydowicz, who holds off Logan McKinzie after that brilliant move into turn 1 right at the end, and it will be Gamma victory for John Lauzon, who brings it on home for Beaver and D's 4th place overall, with a 5-second gap to Francois Schenk, who comes off road to take the 5th place spot. Brilliant drive from him for Sia, and then it will be 7 seconds back. We come to the battle for the rest of the Gamma podium spots, and Ian Bertolucci will hold on the end just ahead of Cooper Akers at line. Matt Shepka takes the 4th place in Gamma, but for Zach Hodako, 9th on the overall road, it is going to be another Delta win for the 76 driver. His performances continue strong, with Chris McDonald in 10th place ahead of John Daniels. Ray Tew finished in 12th just ahead of Gareth McAllister, who comes on home there to take the runner-up spot in Delta. He'll be pleased as punch with that for Yumata Motorsport. Ahead of Mike D'Almeida and Zachary Bowman, who complete your top 15, and it will be Bowman will be your pole sitter for race number 2 for Yellow Flag Motorsport ahead of Mitchell Richmeyer. 16th in the end, but a double podium for Yumata Motorsport. I believe that's their first ever double podium in the Alpha Touring Challenge, and 16th overall for him. He'll be absolutely ecstatic about that. The team will be jumping up and down in joy, and we can see Austin Dunbar ahead of Eli Sasak in the end, who rounds off the Delta top 5, 18th on the road. Fred Alricci and Spencer Clark completing the top 20. But ladies and gentlemen, as the drivers do cool them down, well, what a first race of the day it's been. And well, of course, we've got plenty more to come in our second race very shortly. But just before we do get to that, well, of course, we do have the question of a warm-up period, and it gives us a great opportunity to take a look back at the race results from race number 1, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they come. And as we can see in the end, after taking that pole position, Michael Polasek was never going to let it go. The Yellow Flag Motorsport driver in the end delivering the win by 7.2 seconds over breakfast for dinners, Wojciech Swirydowicz. The Polish driver in the end fighting hard with Logan McKinzie, and McKinzie once again putting together a brilliant start, but Swirydowicz in the end with a little bit of fortune on his side, but also the fact he converted what seemed to be a just slight mistake under braking into an overtaken opportunity. And it's at that level when you see the respect between two drivers, whereby McKinzie saw what was coming, he left the door open and thought he could fight it back to the inside of turn number 2, but Swirydowicz was able to outpower him around the outside. McKinzie took third then for Pennzoil Super Touring, but was 7 seconds clear of John Lauzon, and a very comfortable Gamma win in the end for the Beaver and D's driver. And to be fair to him, when it all went wrong for his rivals in front of him, all he had to do was not make any mistakes. Francois Schenk completed the top 5 there for Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport, and behind the Sia team, it was then Ian Bertolucci on his return to the grid after missing round number 1, the Brazilian driver there being absolutely brilliant for Sim Racing Grid and taking the run-up Gamma spot. He had to fend off Cooper Akers for Pennzoil Pennzoil Super Touring, and Akers in the end being able to sneak his way through, with Matt Shepka also coming through there to take 8th place overall, but 4th in Gamma, just behind the Pennzoil Super Touring 3rd place finisher class. And then from the senior driver, it was Zach Hodako, Delta class winner, and Zach Hodako right now looking absolutely impressive, no doubt about it. And his thought process today is going to be, if he can carry on this trend, how far can he extend his lead at the top of the championship going into round number 3? Well, Chris McDonald took 10th place for Crop Promotions, and in the end, it was a bit of a challenging one for McDonald, being elbowed down the order after making some early gains, but some bold moves in towards turns 4 through to 9 really being the difference. And John Daniels in the end finishing just behind him and missing out on the opportunity there for what could be a top 5 in the Gamma class, having to settle for 6th for T0 Racing Summit. And then it was Raymond Tew in 12th place there for Beaver and D's, just ahead of Gareth McAllister, with the UMATA Motorsport driver definitely mattering today, as he did bring on home that 2nd place in the Delta class, ahead of the Yellow Flag Motorsport pair of Mike Almeida and Zach Bowman. We did see Mitchell Richmeyer completing a double podium for the UMATA Motorsport team in Delta, 16th overall, just missed out on that pole position going into race number 2, but to be fair, he won't be upset about that, because he still has a great opportunity to make it a double podium for his own day today. Austin Dunbar fought hard with Eli Sasak and then got the upper hand for Problem Child Motorsport, with the privateer having to settle for 18th place behind. And it was the first 3 seconds to Fred Ridgely for S-Yacht G, who completed the lead lap finishers. We had a lot of drivers who finished a lap or more down, starting with Spencer Clark, the privateer in 20th place, and that continued there with none other than Christian Austin 21st, Problem Child Motorsport. But to be fair to him, a very positive result there in the Delta class. He'll be happy with that, given the points he'll be taking home, ahead of Evan Clavio for Sim Racing Grid. And then we did see Dan McFarlane fighting back through the field after his incident in the early laps to take home 23rd. He was behind his teammate, but ahead of T0 Racing Sets Tyler Long, who was looking so good to try and help for a double podium in the Delta class, but the damage to the car in the end, just too much, he couldn't quite keep it together. He was ahead of Damon Mitchell with Fleet Smith, Micah Hendricks, Carl Trost, Christoph Ondra, and Major Monsavai completing that top 30. And then from Monsavai, who was the last lap down finisher, it was 3 laps down to Lewis Gilbert, but still finished the race under his own steam. And then we did see retirement, sadly, for Aaron Lahr, Corey Lobner, Jess Rakowski, Kurt Smith, Jason Lynn, Angel Minnesota, and Jonathan Lantin, a non-starter due to a technical issue with the car for junk in the trunk electronicas. But that was just race number 1, ladies and gentlemen. The great news is we've got another one to come. And another 25-minute sprint race is just around the corner. But given the drama we had on the opening couple of laps of race number 1, I wouldn't be surprised if there's been a few words to our drivers just to say to calm it down a little bit on the opening couple of laps, but also in particular to be mindful of going too wide for turns 11 and 12. That was the instant hotspot from race number 1, and indeed it led to the undoing of several drivers, perhaps none more so than essentially, given the fact he was on a runway, or what would be the run-up towards a runway, where we got to see Jason Lynn do his best helicopter impression, unfortunately, after a huge shunt into the side of the car. And also Jess Rakowski, unfortunately, being caught up in parts of that. But what I'm hearing, all drivers are okay. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to make way to the grid for the second race of the day, as we've got another 25 minutes of racing coming up. And as they all make their way back onto the grid once again, this is how our drivers will all line up for race 202. And as we can see, taking pole position, it is going to be Zach Bowman for Yellow Flag Motorsport, as the YFM car stands proudly at the very front with the top 15 inverted overall starting order. He'll be joined on the front row by his teammate of Mike Almeida. Can Yellow Flag Motorsport make it a 1-2 in Gamma? Can they even do it, perhaps? In the overall category, well, street circuit, it's going to be hard to overtake at. Gareth McAllister starts 3rd, Delta pole sitter for UMATA Motorsport, and this could be a huge opportunity for him to take his first ever Delta win, as I understand it, and will the number 25 driver be itching to try and make it all happen. Indeed, also the first ever win for the UMATA Motorsport team. Ray Tew starts 4th there, your highest alpha driver for Beaver and D's. This is a great opportunity for him to try and take an overall win, and he hasn't had many of those, but he's had some overall podiums, and he'll be very keen on number 96 to try and make the magic happen. John Daniels starts 5th place there for T0 Racing Summit, ahead of Chris McDonald for Crop Promotions, and then we do see Zach Hodako starting 2nd in the Deltas, 7th on the grid for T0 Racing Ascent. Can he come through and perhaps make it back-to-back Wednesday and absolutely charge away at the top of the standings? Matt Shepka starts 8th there for Sia, ahead of Cooper Akers of Pennzoil Super Touring, and it'll be Ian Bertolucci who completes the top 10 for Sim Racing Grid. How will he be able to fight his way through the order? Can he get back onto the Gamma podium once more? If not, well behind him, there'll be plenty of drivers trying to steal the places off him, including Francois Schink for Sia, who'll be ahead of John Lauzon for Beaver and D's. We then do see Logan McKinzie starting 13th for Pennzoil Super Touring. He's now got to try and fight back hard versus his rivals of Wojciech Swirydowicz for breakfast for dinner, and Michael Polasek for Yellow Flag Motorsport, who start behind him and complete the inverted top 15. Starting on the 8th row alongside Polasek, where he finished in race number 1, it will be UMAT Motorsport's Mitchell Richmire, who'll be the third of your Delta drivers, and his thought process will be that he's got to try and keep the Delta pack behind him now, because he's got plenty of Deltas behind him, including Austin Dunbar for Promchild Motorsport and Eli Sassett, the privateer, on row number 9. Row 10, it's going to be Fred Ritchie for S G and the privateer of Spencer Clark. And then outside what will be the top 10 row, starting 21st, it's going to be Christian Ost and the Promchild Motorsport trial. We're definitely trying to be a problem for the roles in front of him, but Evan Clavio could be his problem for Sim Racing Grid alongside him. And it's going to be Dan McFarlane, he starts 23rd for Sim Racing Grid ahead of T0 Racing Sense Tyler Long. And we do have Damon Mitchell for Crop Promotions ahead of Fleet Smith for B4Ds. We have Micah Hendricks 27th there for Crop Promotions. It all went very wrong in race number 1. Can he get it to go right in this one? Because if not, he might be at the back of the field once again, and Carl Trost would like to do the same. The T0 Racing Ascent driver in misery on the opening laps of race 1, and therefore we never really got to see him deliver what he could. It's then going to be none other than Christopher Ondra starting 29th for Junk in the Trunk Electronicas, and it's definitely been a rough start to the season for the new team, but can he have a bit of a smoother run in this one, ahead of Major Mon Survivor T0 Racing Summit? And then we do see outside your top 30, 31st, it's going to be Lewis Gilbert for Gator Racing ahead of the privateer of Aaron Lahr, with Corey Lobner 33rd ahead of Jess Rakowski for T0 Racing Summit, and well, given how quick she was in qualifying, watch out for Jess, she's going to come charging through that Delta field. Kurt Smith will start just behind there on row number 18 for B4D's out of Gator Racing's Jason Lynn, and it'll be Angel Minnesota for Penguin Mafia, and Jonathan Lantin starts at the very back. But I do believe we're not seeing Smith, Lantin, or Minnesota on this grid, ladies and gentlemen. I think all 3 cars are going to be non-starting due to technical issues after race number 1, or in Lantin's case, since he's got here at the start of the day. But without further ado, it's time to get this race started as we look down to the grid once more, and for the second time today, it is going to be Fire and Lights. And it's lights and away we go for race number 2 as I try to get away as quickly as they can, but they roar the way down towards turn number 1. Well, right now, everyone coming down into opening braking zone, and Zach Bowman holding off Mike Almeida as they roll the way through the corners, but coming in towards it. Well, lovely camera angle there, really getting a show as it goes a bit wrong. For it's Francois Schenk turns sideways, but gets himself pointing straight again. It's going to be 4 wide now as they taper into turn number 2. Oh, and there's going to be contact further behind. That is Hendricks going around. Hendricks sideways, gets pointed back in the right direction immediately, and everyone a lot more cautious this time. I think they've all been warned after race number 1 to just rein it in a little bit and calm the racing down. And to be fair, we're all better for it so far, as we do see our leader Bowman head of De Almeida at the moment as they're coming towards turns 8 to 9. To you just behind there, Chris McDonald in 4th ahead of your Delta leader Gareth McAllister, and Zach Hidalgo's there with him already. But as we do see a few drives, they're going side by side. That is going to be a very side-by-side moment there between what will be Polasek and Swirydowicz as they come onwards. And well, they've jumped a long way up. In fact, how on earth have they launched their way all the way up there? We're going to be 2 wide coming through the kink and in towards turn number 10. It's going to be Swirydowicz on the inside. Polasek trying to go around the outside. A battle on the brakes here, and Swirydowicz is never going to be beaten in the battle of the brakes like that. And that's going to be John Lauzon trying to squeeze his way into the mix with Logan McKinzie behind. Well, Logan McKinsie's been completely dropped by them on what is the opening few quarters. And as they make the way in towards turns 13 and 14, McKinsie's trying to come back, but John Lauzon's going to be the buffer as he comes out to the hairpin, sideways there for Shepka, and well, in the end, going a little bit more sideways than with Light coming out the corner. He's going to be put side by side with Franz Washington, who was sideways at the starter lap, so a bit of symmetry there for the 2 teammates from Sia. But as we come towards lap number 2, with plenty more to go, unfortunately, we have got Eli Susak, who's had to tow to the pit lane, so something's going a bit wrong for him. We'll get an update on that when we can. But as all the field comes into the opening braking zone, there's going to be a potential move being made, I believe, there by what was that the undershot Major Mon Survivor trying to go for a move on Damon Mitchell? Yes, it was. It didn't quite work out, however, and Austin Dunbar currently running 8th in the Delta class in the mix, with Mike Hendricks just behind him. But onwards they power towards what we turn number 4, and here we can see Fleet Smith right now with intermittent connectivity. He's having quite a bit of discontinuity today. Well, rubs paint there with the machinery of Tyler Long, gets on past, and Long right now will be not too happy about the way he's just been slightly pushed aside, but I suspect he'll cool them down immediately and think to himself, actually, you know what, it's way better to let him go, given how quick he is, and Damon Mitchell and Major Mon Survivor will be looking to do the same very soon. But remember, drives pick up points based on oval finishing position first and foremost. There are some bonus points for your Gamma and also your Delta drives, so their podium finishes, whereby it's 8 for first, 2 for second, and well, no, 8 for first, 4 for second, and what will be 2 for third in a endurance race, and we halve that given the fact that we do have 2 sprint races, so it is 4 for first, 2 for second, and 1 for third in each of these sprint races, so it all adds up. But as we do see our drives coming through, we'll Wojciech Swirydowicz and side by side with Ian Bertolucci as they come down towards turn number 1. And once they do so, Swirydowicz right now, he's going to be making that move quite quickly. Although you can see Bertolucci in the Audi quicker on the straight. The problem is in the braking zone on the inside. Swirydowicz has got the better brakes in that Honda. He's got the better corner approach. I think Bertolucci is going to be made to hang around the outside to inside. That's not going to work. That will open a doorway up here for Michael Polasek to come through as well. And Polasek will be grateful here. He's really using Swirydowicz as his battering ram, proverbially speaking. But as John Lauzon also tries to come through, and Logan McKinzie right now, the poor man just cannot get a break here and trying to come through. And Indian has to trade a bit of paint there with Bertolucci. Lauzon's able to squeeze on through. And I think Bertolucci's going to suddenly look at his relative and go, wait a minute, John Lauzon was in that group. How did he get past? And the answer is John Lauzon right now has just literally anchored himself to the back of Polasek's car and has essentially taken the adage, which is whatever Polasek does, I do as well. And it is working out a treat for him. Oh, goodness me, this is a big incident. That's Austin Bar coming in towards turn number 8, and we see several cars parking up there. Meanwhile, I do believe that was Krista Ondra for Gator Racing just charging through the scene of the incident, and I think carrying enough speed there to be safe. And I think Jason Lynn was in that as well, so a bit of a nasty one. But meanwhile, Aaron Lar missing the front bump here, and I think he was caught up in that as Jason Lynn side by side, and Lynn on the inside, Lar on the outside here, and Jason Lynn will get that move done just like that. But does he outbrake himself? Not quite. Aaron Lar goes to the switch back there, but he's going to lose momentum. And well, as they make the way in towards the next couple of corners, that is going to be a 10th place now sealed for the Delta drive of Lynn. And we're coming up into the braking zone of the hairpin. You can see that Cole Trost would like to ideally make a way through as well. But from here, we do look to Mike D'Almeida, who's trying to keep TU behind. And Zach Bowman right now may have a golden opportunity here to run away with this. If Bowman can, given the fighting that's going on, well, TU wants that overall win. Well, he's got to clear 2 very determined Gamma drivers who, remember, last season were his rivals for the championship crown. But he was able to outrun them all in the end. And TU in the end will go outside to outside around these corners right now through turns 7, 8, 9. And the Beaver and Deeds driver right now really having to dig in here. And well, can he get this done? And well, I think he will. He does. I believe he can get it done as they drag race their way up towards turn number 10. But you can see there right now that D'Almeida getting the better run coming out to turn number 9. He's just able to get back ahead. And we'll see you falling backwards into the mix right now. But what a brilliant battle between these drivers. Remember, every corner they fight, they are giving Zachary Bowman the opportunity to just run away that little bit more. And that is going to be all about the difference. But here comes TU diving up the inside, goes all in for the move. And as he does so there, we'll train a little bit of paint as they make their way out the corner. But that's the move for Raymond TU, and that's the move he needed to do. So moves into second place. Now can he close down the gap to none other than Zachary Bowman? And keeping in mind, of course, that for Bowman, it has been a long time since he's been in a position like this. And TU right now still having to defend. D'Almeida is not going away. He is refusing to just let go and making the way out around. Well, to keep in mind that Zach Bowman has yet to take an overall win in his AlphaTauri Challenge career. And indeed, the last time he did take a class win was in round number 6. That was at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Bar in the Gamma class. He's had 7 Delta wins and only 1 Gamma win. And right now, can he make it another win today? Because, of course, after what was the first race, which actually worked out very nicely for Bowman in terms of how it all played out. Well, now he's hoping that he can make even more out of this one, and in doing so, pick up the biggest haul of points that he dares to dream to do so. John Lauzon was your winning race number 1 in the Gamma class right now, but I think Lauzon's got a lot more work to do as we see him coming on through and in towards turn number 10. And that long queue of cars there, including Akers and Daniels, they're all together right now. And Bowman, by comparison, well, the big points will keep on coming if they all keep on fighting behind him, and he's still got 90 minutes to go. This is not over yet. Plenty more fighting on the cards as Lauzon and Akers continue to push each other a little bit for 5th place in the Gamma class. And Lauzon here looks up the inside, comes in way too high into the braking zone, and in the end knocks Cooper Akers out the way like a pinball. And well, unfortunately for the 29 driver there, he won't be too happy about that. I'm sure that's going to go to the stewards afterwards if he reports it. And meanwhile, we do look back to the front of Delta, because right now Gareth McAllister here, he's trying to make sure that he doesn't get passed by John Daniels. But John Daniels says, I'm going to dispatch you just like this, click of the finger up the inside, and Gareth McAllister lets that go. But I suspect right now that the Yamaha Motorsport driver is more prioritising what is focusing on taking another podium in the Delta class rather than worrying about overall position. So Darko has found his way past. We are going to get a replay of that shortly, but not before we see Swirydowicz drive up the inside. My good lord, Swirydowicz right now just leaning everywhere he goes. But to be fair, you've got a race like this at St. Pete. You can't be passive. You've got to be bold. You've got to be brave. And you've got to be brilliant. And that's what Swirydowicz is. All 3 adjectives in one. And well, he does finally put a drive between himself and Gareth McAllister. This is the first time that Michael Polasek has not let Swirydowicz do all the hard work for him, or I should say, been able to let him do it. And Polasek right now, the number 1 driver here, looking to the inside to turn number 10, coming from quite far back to do it. But he's hoping McAllister sees it coming, and he does. And he clatters over the curb there. But of course, that will curb his momentum as he makes his way in towards the chicane. And well, McAllister comes back ahead. But you can see Polasek immediately backs out there. He's seen the footage of what happened in race number 1. He does not want to end up becoming a spinning top through there as he makes his way through turns 13 and 14. And John Lauzon behind. Logan McKinzie and Ian Bertolucci, they're all catching back up. But this has brought Swirydowicz a 1.5 second gap to now play with. New fastest lap race. place. Ray to you, a 16.904, 6 tenths faster than Zach Bowman at the front of the field. So Bowman right now, he knows the pressure's going to be building from behind. But meanwhile, speaking of pressure cooker moments, we've got Tyler Long battling with Evan Clavio. And these two, but they have plenty of fight in season 16, and I suspect we're going to see even more of it here today. And coming through at the opening bend right now, we jump on board your 767 car as the American driver T0 Racing Ascent pushes his way all the way up towards turn number 4. And will he look for the move here as he gets ready for that braking zone? We can see Clavio going a little bit defensive in the middle of the road there, saying so long. Tyler, if you're going to think about it, don't try it. It's not worth it. And the T0 Racing Ascent driver, these two know each other so well. They've got such a brilliant rivalry between them. And right now, Long immediately just sitting behind here. And again, just the small little defensive lines are what going to be the difference perhaps in some situations, as Hendricks there being passed around the outside by Clavio by the looks of things. In fact, no, that was Hendricks up the inside of Long. Let me correct myself there. Indeed, I look away for a brief moment, look back, and suddenly we've just got surprise Hendricks on screen. And well, certainly free driver there squeezes about the inside for turn number 8, and Long having to let that go. And well, I think Hendricks is right now going to really prove to be perhaps an opportunity maker for Long if he does attack Clavio at the right place on the circuit. This long line of cars, very tight, and Corey Lobner is right towards the back of it here in the CFR car. And we're hoping that perhaps he can get involved a little bit as well. As they all stay nose to tail, we look back to John Daniels versus Wojciech Swirydowicz, and Swirydowicz in towards turn 1, goes all in on the brakes there, and that's what happens when you carry too much speed into turn 1. You go deep, but that's why turn 1's been designed like that, so you don't go straight to a barrier. And well, Swirydowicz loses out. And Ian could not get the car to stop in time. And now here comes Michael Polasek. Well, with Polasek with a golden opportunity, he's about to be given one. Now, can he look for it in towards turn number 4? And the answer is no, he waits. And I think that's more patience than anything else. As we got Ian Bertolucci up the inside there, Gareth McAllister. And, well, he's not going to get that done, as in the end he completely mounts the apex curve at turn number 4. McAllister does the same in turn at turn number 5. And right now, they're both putting so much mental pressure on each other here. It's going to be too wide in towards turn number 8. And, well, McAllister at this point trying to hold it around the outside. It is very narrow through these corners. And in the end, McAllister goes around the outside and holds onto it. Lovely move there for 11th place. A nice return for McAllister. Right now, Bertolucci's got Akers and Shiko the back of him like a bad rash as they power the way onwards. And we're coming down towards the braking zone here. Who's going to go for what at this point? And the answer is nobody goes for a move. I think they're all thinking somebody else is going to do something. So therefore, they all play the patience game. As Christian Oster, meanwhile, he's almost, of course, for his first ever Delta podium here versus Fred Al Ridgely. He's all over the back of him. And Al Ridgely, meanwhile, well, he's no stranger to pressure situations like this. And right now, the 119 drive trying to hold on for Eshark G. Although into the braking zone here for the hairpin, you can definitely see that Ost seems to be the quicker driver at the moment. There's a lot more confidence for Ost than there is for Al Ridgely. And, well, perhaps that confidence is going to be well placed. Al Ridgely's doing something to hold on. But meanwhile, can this man hold on? Zach Bowman's got Ray Tew over the back of him. We thought this was coming, but right now Tew looking around the outside to turn number 4. Onto the brakes they go, and the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver, well, I think he's going to lose this now. As to outside to inside, a bit of contact between the two, they touch, and in the end Bowman does get escorted wide, but I think there that's going to be considered a racing incident. I think Bowman did turn in a little bit towards TU. I think what he was trying to do was squeeze TU to the apex, but TU already being on the curb, he wouldn't have been squeezed any further than he already was, and Ray TU takes over the lead. So TU makes his way on down now and around in towards turn number 10, and as he does so, well, understandably, it's now going to be a situation for him whereby can he extrapolate what will be a long lead here and be able to run away with it. Well, we'll have to see what the art of the craft is going to be for him. And keep in mind as well, for Ray Tew, he has yet to take an overall win. And he's had 4 class wins in his career, all 4 of them coming in the 16th season in the Gamma class with its debut. But otherwise, he has yet to take an overall win. But can Tew be able to do it today and pick up a very valuable 100 points for that win? Remember, of course, it's 200 points for an overall win in an endurance round, but we slash it in half because we've got 2 races today, so 100 points per overall win in our sprint races in a given round. All this fighting comes onwards. And down towards turn number 1. Well, right now, Gareth McAllister ahead of Ian Bertolucci still, but Bertolucci itching for that move. You can see he wants to go up the inside, but he doesn't do it this time. Instead, just sits behind there and waits a little bit longer. Meanwhile, it's Battle of Gammas here, as that's John Lauzon getting on past John Daniels, and I think Daniels had a bit of a brush with the wall. Daniels' car does not look happy on that front end. It looks like that front bump has had a graze of some description, unless my eyes do deceive me. In fact, the closer I look now, I think my eyes down might need to get an eye test as he makes fun out. I don't think he's had a brush with the wall. I think he's just gone deep at turn 1. That's cost him the line through 2. I can see Logan McKinzie has come through as well. Further back, Tyler Long still fighting with Evan Clavio for 5th place in the Delta class. That's for 18th place overall. And they're still bringing McFarlane, Richmeyer, and also Monsvai to the party. Christian Oss at the head of the group. He's lost out originally. And right now, your leading problem child Motorsports Audi driver. Ooh, that's a bit of a brush with all there. You don't want to keep doing that, Christian. That's going to cost you speed. That's also going to cost you some bodywork. And with it, more lap time in the long distance. Well, here he comes down towards turn number 10. But you can see there. Oh, my goodness. And that is a big lift off there for Evan Clavier and Tyler Long. What reactions there. Those are inhuman reactions to use the Counter-Strike meme. And, well, we can see Tyler Long there just in the end at the last moment having to snatch the car to the inside. And Evan Clavier immediately comes back. And Clavier goes for it. Goes too deep into the corner. I don't know what's fired Evan Clavier up so. But in the end, I think it's the fact that Tyler Long was able to get that start. And he's lost out 2 places at the price of 1 counter-attack. As Dan McFarlane gets up for as well. I think McFarlane will be on the radio to his teammate there and saying to him essentially, well, you know what? You've tried it. Let it go for now. Let me be a nuisance to him and I'll help you back through. But meanwhile, that's going to be too wide there as that's going to be Major Monsavai. He's taken some inspiration from what's going on in front of him and decides, can I potentially make a move into turns 1 and 2? And the answer is no, he can't, because Mitchell Richmeyer holds him at bay, and the Yumata Motorsport driver still keeping his head down and making sure to hold on to some very valuable overall points. In towards the braking zone of turn number 4, and we'll have to wait and see. There's going to be a change between these drivers as the sun gradually sets here in Florida. And to be fair, the streets of St. Pete right now, absolutely beautiful, where it be in full daylight, alternatively in setting light. Indeed, we're not quite at dusk hour, but we are not too far away from it. And all these drivers right now are enjoying some plentiful battle in action. But let's not forget, Carl Trost a bit further back as well. He's chasing after Christoph Onderer for 9th place in the Delta class. And just in front by 4.5 seconds is Jason Lynn. And, well, plenty of goings on between these drivers. As meanwhile, looking back up the road, that's Franz Oshink going around the outside of Bertolucci for 12th place. Well, we see a move there as we see everyone scramble under braking. The answer is no. I think there's definitely an itch to do so from several drivers. They stay as they were at least for now. But with Bowman being passed by TU, we've got pressure starting to build at the very front. And Zach Bowman right now does have Mike D'Almeida right behind him as they're coming down. And D'Almeida here, of course, looking for another Gamma win. But can he find it in towards turn number 4? The answer is no. Chris McDonald on the back of this group right now as we ride on board with your 3rd place Gamma driver. And I think at this point, TU is going to be given the space he needs to take his first overall win of the season, presuming that he doesn't make a mistake of his own. 10 minutes to go. Anything's possible, as late great Murray Walker once said in motorsport, and it does normally happen at some point. But right now, with McDonald carrying on, well, a bit further behind them, we do have Zach Hidako, who running in the lead of Delta, 5th overall. Boy, it's all looking good here for back-to-back victories and a huge score going into round number 3. And it will mean he's taken all the Delta wins so far. If so, with Wojciech Swirydowicz and Michael Polasek still behind there. You can see that right now, Swirydowicz cannot shake Polasek whatsoever, as John Lauzon proving to be the 4 in the front of the side of what is Logan McKinzie. Well, the 2 Honda drives still close. But the Honda definitely proving to be the quickest car here at St. Pete today, it would seem. As in fact, you have a top 11 full of Hondas, and you have 1 Audi in amongst all that, and that is McDonald's Audi Gen 2 RS3 LMS. He's the only Audi up there. But of course, we've got some very different circuits coming up over the course of the season, so don't expect it to be a Honda show all the way through, and don't expect it to always be street circuits either. We've got plenty of variety, and it all starts here in the North America region for the first few rounds of the championship. But as we do see Swirydowicz still being chased by Polasek, and right now close about. Polasek just having to wait that little a bit longer. And the Flag Motorsport driver there, I think keen, but he's also waiting to see just how close they get to the next couple of drives up the road before he starts to pull the trigger. I think he's really playing the game of let Swirydowicz do the hard work, wear his tyres down, and then he might have a little bit more tyre life left at the very end. But it will be a gamble, of course, because if it doesn't pay off, then he's going to fight his way past Swirydowicz quite quickly to be able to make that magic happen, and that is where the difficulty is going to be. Now, in terms of taking a look back in time, we did promise you a few replays, but of course it's been so long since the start of the race, we're not going to go too far back in time. We are going to take a look back at some big moments, including this move from Tyler Long on Evan Clavier. Now this was coming on towards turn number 10. And what you're going to see here, watch Clavier. He backs off, he lifts off, and Long has to snatch the car to the inside. Otherwise, he would have gone straight into the back of Clavier there. That was an unintended overtake, but what a brilliant overtake it was. And in that sequence, we then got to see them come through the chicane of turns 11 and 12. And here, Clavier went to the grass, carried a lot of speed. He couldn't get on the brakes at that point. In fact, the more I think about it, I don't think Clavier meant for that move. I think because he touched the grass there, he lost the ability to get on the brakes. And by the time he rejoined the tarmac, he then had to stamp the brakes fully on there, lean into the ABS, and he naturally was going to understeer to the path of Long. So Long did very well to see it coming, as what has been able to react to what was a slow-going Clavier in the run down towards what was turn number 10 originally. So brilliant battles between them, and we go back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen. And as we do come on back, we'll still 7.5 minutes left on the clock here. Still plenty of fighting to come before this race is said and done. And Zach Hidalgo right now does have Swirydowicz and Polasek all on the back of him. And we're coming through here. Goes defensive in towards the King Canine. He does not want to let these Alpha drivers through, and he's going to cause them to fight each other as Polasek makes it with diagonal 3 wide. Looks on the inside there, but squeezed up onto the curve by Swirydowicz. This is getting close. And right now, well, Hidalgo wants the top 5. He really is going for it. Meanwhile, Zachary Bowman holding on to second place right now overall, but most importantly, that is the Gamma lead. He's still got Mike Almeida and Chris McDonald behind him, and what he would like to take will be his second Gamma win of his career after what was a good performance in the first race today. But right now, can he hold off the Almeida and McDonald, who are looking to be itching for that fight? Well, further back, Tyler Long, he's still fighting with Fred Ridgely for the third place spot in the Delta class. There are battles building up here right towards the end. They've got quite a gap to Gareth McAllister, so I think in the end, McAllister is going to be safe from this battle, and therefore it's going to come down to these two. And speaking of McAllister, he has just been passed by Francois Schink's turn 1. There he is. Schink in the yellow and lime green machine with the lime green shading on the yellow car for Sia. And right now, that's what he'll be saying to Gareth McAllister as he tries to leave the Yamato Motorsport driver behind. But meanwhile, back to Long and Clavio we go. And here we can see they're still fighting an Al Ridgely. Well, he's going to try and get them to compress back into each other once again is the Audi driver. That's got to be the tactic here. As Clavio looking up the inside there, and Tylon going a bit deep initially, but that's more to defend versus Clavio rather than to attack Al Ridgely. He does not want Clavio getting alongside him, so I think he'll be worried that what Clavio will do is just simply lean on him through the corners, which are allowed to do. They are allowed to rub. This is a semi-contact series. In fact, the touring car is expected. You are expected to make contact with other cars every so often. This isn't banger racing though, so we're not expecting them to knock each other off the road. But in the fact that if they do touch each other, that's absolutely okay in touring car racing action since what has really been the start of time of the series, where it be, of course, the legendary Super Touring era of the British Touring Car Championship in the 1990s, all the way through to modern day TCR World Series and TC America. You are going to see contact between drivers. Indeed, it really is one of those sports where touring car keeps everyone very smiley and happy. But meanwhile, can Fernando Ridgely keep himself smiley and happy as Long goes a bit deep there at the hairpin. And here comes Evan Clavio looking for a move as he's going to get the better run out the corner. It's going to be the battle of the Elantra versus the Honda. We know the Elantra's quicker on the straight, and that means Clavio now has got to try and find something on the brakes here with 5 minutes to go into the opening corner. He's going to be all in here for the move, and in the end, is he going to be able to make it happen? Well, it's going to be from inside to outside, and I think Tai Long's going to hold it together for now. But meanwhile, off camera, we have seen Wojciech Swirydowicz move into 5th place. He's got past that Hidalgo. That was into turn number 4 from what we hear in our ear. So therefore now Hidalgo's defence has fallen to one of the Alpha drivers, but will it fall to the other one? Will Polasek be able to find his way through? Now known once again. He's got to try and find his way past the Delta driver, and well, he's going to look up the inside here. That's very late. And what in the end, trying to say to Hidalgo, look, I'm going to send this on you. You better be ready for it. And Hidalgo was in the end, and Polasek a fair driver. But here comes John Lauzon. Lauzon's going to go too wide for the chicane. They survive it just about, and in the end, Logan McKinzie right now is going to be brought right back into this. And Lauzon doesn't quite get the move done, but Polasek was not expecting that. And in the end, Lauzon went for it. Was a bit cheeky in doing so. And McKinzie now says to him, right, well, if you're going to try that, I'm going to try something of my own here. I'm going to get the better run down towards turn number 1, and we're into the braking zone they go. Lauz on the outside, McKinzie on the inside, and the Pennzoil Super Touring number 4 here all in on the brakes. But remember, he's going to go around the outside to complete this move now, and Lauzon's not just going to back out through that left-hander, but he's on that tighter line, and indeed will be forced to back out there because the natural understeer of the car will say so, and it will be Logan McKinzie up into 8th place. A lovely move from McKinzie, and well, critical one there to get onto the back of Polasek, and can he now take him on for what will be a chance of being the third of the Alpha drivers. Of course, the Alpha class does not have its own podium. They don't have their own class championship. They compete in the overall championship because they are the very best of the best on this grid. And once we do see Carl Trost here, while the Delta's attacking Krista Ondra still. Ondra doing a brilliant job holding on. But meanwhile, oh, goodness me, what's happened to the dark? Goodness me, he's making me stumble on my words. What happened to Hidalgo, I mean to say, as all my words spill out of my mouth and onto the table in front of me. And well, the number 76 driver, I think he's had a big brush with all that front left suspension has collapsed. And Hidalgo's race, is he going to be able to survive here? Because if not, Gareth McAllister right now, he could be on course here for what would be the Delta win. And McAllister will be pushing absolutely furiously here and doing everything he can. Can he take his first Delta win of the season? He can, because that was the car of Hidalgo towing to the pit lane there. And McAllister right now, if he realises it or not, he's on course for Delta victory. Well, after what was a double podium, 2nd and 3rd for Yamato Motorsport in the Delta class in race 1. Right now, it may not be a double podium in this one, but for Gareth McAllister, it will be his first ever Delta win, his first win in the Alpha Touring Challenge in class. And right now, it could happen here. And right now, does he focus on fighting with Cooper Akers and Shepka? Well, if he's been told over the radio by the team seeing where he is. I suspect he's not going to fight if he can help it, but Shepka right now is going to take the fight to Akers, so he might buy him a bit of space, in fact. Can't find the move there for 6th place in Gamma. Akers holds him off for 12th overall, and now they'll take the fight up towards will be turn at number 4, but we do get a quick replay back to what exactly happened there. But before we do, we're going to see this battle, and it'll be Shepka up the inside of Akers, all in at 4, and Cooper Akers in the end just having nothing to respond. I wonder, in fact, it looks to me like that front left bodywork on Akers' car has been pushed in around the tyre over that Honda. I think he's had a brush with the wall somewhere, and that's cost him the ability to attack into right-hand corners. So suddenly Shepka might be coming through there, and Akers might have a bit of a wound on the car. Meanwhile, in fact, the replay of what's happened to Hidalgo is going to wait, ladies and gentlemen, because here is Dan McFarlane trying to poke his way past Tyler Long. That's not going to be easy as they brush toward exit. And right now, this long line of cars being led by Fuad Al-Ridgely. Well, I'll tell you one thing, Al-Ridgely right now has done an incredible job in causing the world's biggest traffic jam in the streets of St. Pete. And indeed, we've seen a few traffic jams over the years, including the infamous Trudy train of the Monaco Grand Prix all the way back in the 1990s, but nothing quite like this on the 119 driver. And right now, this 2nd place in Delta is going to feel incredibly rewarding if he can hold on to it. But Long, again, looking around the outside, trying to poke, trying to prod, but right now it's not coming together as they head on down the runway. And meanwhile, here comes Shepka up the inside of McAllister, and McAllister's going to fight this. Shepka goes all in, and McAllister's not backing off here, but as he comes through turn number 2, he will back off eventually. And I suspect right now the thought process for McAllister is but a little bit of a fight, but don't do anything silly. Do not throw away a first Delta win of the season. The team will be on the radio screaming at him, do not throw it away, Gareth, because this is going to be such a big result for you and for us in the Delta Teams Championship. And keep in mind the fact that Mitchell Richmond, his teammate, 5th at the moment in class, but still close to the back of Evan Clavio. He might still have an opportunity here to get involved as Clavio fights with Dan McFarlane. This is going to be side by side here between the SRG and Sim Racing Grid drives, and they make contact. And as they do, in fact, both of Sim Racing Grid, they make contact, and Will Richmeyer trying to squeeze his way through. No, he doesn't. There's no way you're doing the Moses maneuver through there. And in the end, he knows that like anybody else as they come through. But right now, contact with the Sim Racing Grid cars, and understandably, Clavio takes the space back from McFarlane. But I think there'll be words between the two there, because that could have ended up in a very grisly demise for both of them. And what would it have done to the rest of the field behind? Well, your guess is as good as mine, ladies and gentlemen. But as our leader, Raymond Tew, right now makes his way on through turns 1 and 2. He's got one more lap to go. Zachary Bowman, meanwhile, holding on at the front for the Gammas in 2nd place. He's got Mike Almeida behind him. Wojciech Swirydowicz is up in the 4th, and will Swirydowicz now find his way onto the overall podium here. The Almeida's the only driver he needs to pick off to be able to make his way onto that podium. Chris McDonald is 1.1 seconds behind, with Michael Polasek and Logan McKinzie and John Lalzan in train. So therefore, Swirydowicz will be clear of the rest of his Alpha rivals in that group, albeit I don't think he's going to have a chance here to take on to you unless a miracle happens at this point, and he will not be hoping for that. I think Raymond Tew would love to bring home that first overall win of his career, and we'd love to see him do it. I think everyone would. It'd be a big moment for Tew. It'd be a bit emotional coming out of that car afterwards. But meanwhile, this battle for 2nd place, well, I think Bowman's going to get emotional here if he holds on to this, because this would be one of his best results in his career. In fact, it would be his highest ever finish in his career to be 2nd overall and pick up a huge haul of points. But he makes his way through at turn number 10 and up towards 11 and 12. Right now, Bowman keeping it together. And well, as he goes, we must leave him for a moment, because Ray Tew, well, Gamma champion last season, and here now, he's going to take his first ever overall win is Ray Tew as he comes to the line. It's a special moment for the Beaver and D's driver, but he's done it. He will be winner in race number 2 of the day, and then it will be Zach Bowman who comes alone to take the runner-up spot overall, and with the Gamma win ahead of Mike D'Almeida, who's 3rd, Wojciech Swirydowicz 4th, ahead of Chris McDonald, who completes the Gamma podium in 5th, Michael Polasek, Logan McKinzie, and then it will be John Lauzon ahead of John Daniels, who comes home in 9th place ahead of Francois Schenk. Matthew Shepka takes 11th, and for Gareth McAllister, it is a first Delta win for Yamaha Motorsports, the team, and for him as a driver. What a drive from the 25 driver, 12th overall ahead of Cooper Akers and Ian Bertolucci. Fuad Al-Ridgely takes 2nd place in the Delta class, and Tyler Long takes 3rd. And well, what a podium that was. Evan Clavio just missed out at the end, and then it will be behind Clavio, Dan McFarlane and Mitchell Richmeyer, who completes that Delta top 5, 19th on the overall road ahead of Corey Lobner, who got into the thick of the fight in the CFR car. Jason Lindley had a much better race 2 compared to his race 1, I can tell you that, going from 36th to 21st just ahead of Krista Ondra, and there'll be Austin Dunbar ahead of Fleet Smith and Christian Ost. And I do believe we have Micah Hendricks going to line here, but what a frustrating day it's been today for Hendricks. And well, he's going to take it out on that tyre barrier, no doubt about it. Spencer Clark in the end comes on through to take 27th, 10th in the Delta class, some respectable points for him for the YNAB team. And then we will see Zach Hidalgo ahead of Lewis Gilbert, and that will be your finishing order, ladies and gentlemen, to a lap down. But as our drivers cool on down, well, what a race this has been. Full of excitement, full of drama, and well, of course, the biggest bit of drama of them all. It all went wrong for Zach Hodako right at the end when he was in such a commanding position to take home what would be the Delta win. But what happened to him? Let's get our replay before your race results, ladies and gentlemen. And here we go to explain what exactly happened to Zach Hodako. And this was the number 17, lap 17, I should say, as I get my words minced up there. And we're in the end at the 76 drive going to the barrier. And, well, there's a bit more of a story than that. Now, what exactly happened to him is the question that we want to know. We take a look back here. This was Swirydowicz making a move on Hodako. Was this where it happened? So, they were side by side. This was on lap 16. And we went for the move there. Hodako gave him the space. Made the way for turn 4 into 5 here. So, no damage initially. I think he's going to make an error somewhere around here, and that's what's going to spoil it for him. So coming through, and as he did so through turn number 8 and 9, absolutely A-OK. And on the exit of the corner, no, it looked absolutely fine there. So I think it was all right initially, but then we did have on lap 17, this was Michael Polasek passing Zach Hodako. Was this in the midst of it all? So, came through the corner, and as he did so, Hodako went deep. He went into the wall! He hit the wall, then the exit of turn number 9, completely uninvited. And that's how it fell apart for Zach Hodako. You've got to feel for him. He was in such a good position to make it 3 wins in a row for the season, and he threw it all away with just an innocent mistake. And that is pressure there, getting to the 76 driver. And there's nothing more than that when you've got multi-time champions behind you. And understandably, hit the wall the second time. Now, that's out of frustration. That's born out of, and that's where it all went wrong. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we head back to your live circuit side pictures, and with it, take a look at your race results. And as we do come on back, well, of course, the streets of St. Pete go silent, but we don't on this broadcast just yet, as we do bring you the results from our second race of the day, and here they are, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen, confirmation, his first ever overall win. Ray to you. The Beaver and D's driver in the end, taking the lead early on, and using the batting of the Gammas and Alphas behind to make sure he was untouchable and take the win by 6.6 seconds. Zachary Bowman taking home second place there, a Gamma win, now making it what is none other than his second Gamma win of his career for the Yellow Flag Motorsport, head of Mike D'Almeida, his teammate, and what a huge score for the team, and also for the Gamma Championships respectively. Wojciech Swirydowicz, fourth there for breakfast or dinner, but to be fair, he'll be very pleased at the fact that whilst he may not be able to take the overall win, he really will have taken the win of the charge through the field between himself, Michael Polasek, and Logan McKinzie. Speaking of those two, well, they were split from Swirydowicz by the 5th place finish of Chris McDonald, who was 3rd in the Gamma class, and the Crop Promotions driver fighting hard as he always does, and land himself on the Gamma podium. Michael Polasek, 6th there, ahead of Logan McKinzie. And Polasek's strategy of just follow Swirydowicz through the field worked for the first half of the race, but towards the end of it, in the end, he was getting a little bit savvy and caught out by the drivers in front, and therefore he had to fight his way forward, and he couldn't quite find his way past Chris McDonald. Logan McKinzie made sure to stay very close all the way to the end for Pennzoil Super Touring, but was ahead of Beaver and D's driver John Lauzon, who missed out on the Gamma podium, but another solid score of points, and John Daniels there ran off the Gamma top 5 in 9th place for T0 Racing Summit. He was 7 seconds behind Lauzon, but he was the best part of 2 seconds clear of Francois Schinck, who ran off the top 10 for Kirby Enthusiasm Motorsport, and it was his a teammate of Matt Shepko rounded off the run to best rest in 11th place. Gareth McAllister, a first Delta winner of his career, and what a way to go from a first double podium for Yumata Motorsport to a first Delta win for the team and for him, and well, of course, aided by the misfortune of Zach Hodako, but he had to do the work to be in second, and in the end, when the leader got it wrong, he was the first driver on the scene to pick up the pieces, and that's what it's all about. Cooper Akers taking 13th for Pennzoil Super Touring, holding off Ian Bertolucci to the line for Sim Racing Grid, and it was S-Shark G's Fuenal Rigi who put together an incredible defensive drive for what was effectively, he thought, 3rd place in the Delta class, but in the end, with Hodako's demise, it was for 2nd place, the runner-up spot, and Tyler Long made his way back onto the Delta podium, but could not break down the defensive barrier set up by the 119 Audi. The T0 Racing Ascent driver, however, was able to keep up the barriers versus the Sim Racing Grid pair of Evan Clavier and Dan McFarlane, had their own little altercation towards the very end of the race, and then we did see Mitchell Richmeyer, another top 5 for the Yumata Motorsport driver in the Delta class, and Yumata Motorsport staying in the Delta Championship. They are going to be absolutely ecstatic. This will really bring them back into the mix with the likes of T0 Racing Ascent. Corey Lobner ran off the top 20 just behind by 6 tenths at line. And behind him, 21st, it was none other than Jason Lin for Gator Racing, ahead of Krista Ondera and the Junk in the Truck Electronicas driver, then 6 seconds clear of Austin Dunbar. The Proton Motorsport driver was the second ahead of Fleet Smith at the end. In fact, he was 3 tenths ahead, let me correct myself. And then we did see behind the B4D's driver, who after that frustrating race number 1, did quite a bit of recovery work, but also saw his race come undone early on in this one. Well, Christian Austin in the end took 25th just behind him, literally by only 200 line for Problem Child Motorsports. And it was 10 seconds further back to Micah Hendricks, who's definitely had a miserable day on the streets of Florida. Spencer Clark completed those who finished on the lead lap, and behind him, a lap down a piece, Zach Hodarko there with that late retirement, sadly for him, and also Lewis Gilbert for Gator Racing. It was 3 laps down to Carl Trost there for T0 Racing Ascent, and then we did see the retirements of Major Monsai, Jess Sikowski, Aaron Lahr, Damon Mitchell, Eli Sarsak, Kurt Smith, Angel Minnesota, and Jonathan Lantin. And we should point out that it was non-starts for Kurt Smith, Angel Minnesota, and Jonathan Lantin, as we have been informed. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, 2 incredible races for our first ever visit to the streets of St. Petersburg. Indeed, I'm sure we'll be coming back here in the near future, given how epic the racing action has been today. I'm sure you'll agree. But with that, sadly, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you've enjoyed today's show and perhaps you're sat there right now thinking to yourself, I've absolutely loved watching it, how do I get on the grid to join the Alpha Touring Challenge? Because I love touring cars and I'd love to be on there. And I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, if I wasn't in the commentary booth and if I wasn't based in the United Kingdom, I would be on that grid as well. That's how epic the race it is here. It really is touring car at its finest. Well, of course, the best way to find out how you can get on the grid or want to know more, do go to our official website at alphatouringchallenge.com. That website on screen now. It's a very straightforward and easy to navigate website, and you've got everything you need to know on this website, whether it be the full history of the championship, the current championship stands, the roster, you name it, it's here. Also all the previous broadcasts as well, the Hall of Famers. You couldn't ask for a more complete compendium of the Alpha Touring Challenge in a single place. But of course, with that, we also do need to take the opportunity to say a big thank you to our series partners, who do include none other than Syncmesh, first and foremost. And well, to tell you a little bit about Syncmesh, born out of the pursuit of one man's search for better gear for sim racing, Syncmesh is the company which provides purpose-built gear for sim racing, ranging from gloves through to full line of performance wear. With an obsessive attention to detail in their gear, which aligns with your attention to detail in nailing lap after lap on the simulator, you could not ask for better gear to make your racing experience better. And if you'd like to know more, do head to their website at sync-mesh.com today. And we'd also like to give a big shout out to our other series partner, and that is Glass and Steel Photography and Design. The Alpha Touring Challenge's official photographer, Jason Lin, is a highly talented and approachable individual who provides both photography and livery design services for the iRacing simulator platform as part of Glass and Steel Photography and Design. But do not just take our word for it. With 5-star reviews from his clientele, citing him as easy to work with, detail-orientated, and a very fast responder. If you're looking for pixel-precise photography or a livery design to dominate the competition, then why not head to his website at glassnsteel1.wordpress.com today. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we've got time for today, and we now look ahead to next time. And in a week's time, we remain in the US state of Florida, but we make our way to the Miami International Autodrome. The circuit opened in 2022 for the purposes of Formula 1, but since then has expanded to include a plenty of closed-wall racing, and it will be the site of our touring cars. They roll the way around on Monday, the 4th of May, 2026. But fret not, we'll be catching up with all the racing action on Tuesday, the 5th of May, so we invite you to come join in as if it were live then. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we have been the Alpha Touring Challenge. I've been your host and commentator Paul Walsh. You've been tuning into a Paul Walsh production. And until next time, remember to stay well, stay safe, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.